never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's pro football focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady. We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
You just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam.
So,
who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football season, all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL Podcast. Steve Palazzolo back here with Sam Monson. Week one's in the books, man.
it is. Well, Monday Night Football.
We still have
Almost.
Monday Night Football. No doubleheader this year. Just one game for us to watch. But yeah, a lot of action. All sorts of stuff happened. So let's dive right into it. From yesterday, we talked a little bit before the show and said we usually go game by game. We touch on every single game, but we're going to start it this week by asking the question, essentially, what are we overreacting to? What are we properly reacting to? What was real? What wasn't real as far as week one? We already have the PFF NFL Daily up, by the way. If you guys are subscribers, you already got our biggest surprise, each of us, for week one. But let's start with what was real, because we learned some new things yesterday, Sam. We also might have some fool's gold out there as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. You watch the games and you're like, okay, we're halfway through the 1 p.m.s. How many things have you thrown out the window that you've been saying for the last sort of few months? How many things have you already decided you were completely wrong about? And then there are some things out there that you're like, okay, I see where this is going. On the other hand, this is one game. It's probably not real. It is. I think there are definitely some things that are new pieces of information, even though it's week one. And week one gives you a level of crazy, and there are going to be some weird results out there. So sort of working through this whole thing and deciding what's real and what is just variance and week one craziness, I think is interesting. Ultimately, what's going to happen is, anything that you thought was the case beforehand, week one just backed up your priors, and that's the way it's going to be. And anything that goes against what you thought, well, it's week one, it's variance.
Only small sample size.
It's week one, it's variance.
Sample size.
It's going to swing back. Who knows?
All right. What do you think? So give me something that was real.
Give me something that was real.
Okay, let's go into Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yes.
Let me start with this.
Good,
Pittsburgh Steelers,
good place
Buffalo Bills. Steelers win 23-16. The thing we mentioned on the podcast that did happen was, hey, Josh Allen against the Steelers has not performed all that well, and we went and looked up his grade, and he had a sub 50 passing grade against the Steelers blitz, against their blitz in their first two games. But in this game, the Steelers played this completely differently. They played coverage a lot, 4-man rush, a lot of two high safeties, and non-Steelers types of teams, non-blitz heavy teams have tried to play Josh Allen in this manner before. I was impressed that the Steelers adjusted their traditional game plan. Does this mean they're going to become a game plan oriented defense? Because their 4-man rush, Cameron Hayward, TJ Watt, Melvin Ingram, Alex Highsmith, those guys got after it. It was an impressive outing by that Steelers D.
It was, and I think that's one thing that's real, is this idea of don't write off the Pittsburgh Steelers too quickly, because there's too much talent on this team for them to just not be a factor this year. Okay, maybe they won't go on an undefeated run of 11-0 and be one of the best teams in the NFL for a period and a contender, but this team is too good to go on have a losing record, which Tomlin has never had, and sort of fade into obscurity while the Browns and the Ravens jockey for position in the division. That defense is nasty, and as much as defense is high variance and you can't rely on it necessarily year to year, one of the massive sort of under the radar things is they upgraded when they went from Bud Dupree, let him walk to sign the big contract in Tennessee, and got Melvin Ingram at the death of free agency when nobody was signing anybody for a throwaway deal. Melvin Ingram has had like 5-6 straight seasons that are better than anything Bud Dupree has ever had from a PFF pass rushing grade point of view. He is a better pass rusher than Bud Dupree is. And if he stays healthy, which, to be fair, is a significant caveat, that is a major upgrade. And it allows them, I think, to do a lot more from just a four-man rush point of view. Like, they blitzed a lot because it gets people favorable matchups and it allows people like Bud Dupree to have production, even if he's not necessarily winning one-on-one against a tackle. Now, they can deploy just four guys, rely on Melvin Ingram, planting spin moves on reasonable left tackles like Deion Dawkins, and racking up pressure.
Yeah, this was impressive. By the time the PFF grades come out, which, again, if you guys are new here at PFF, we grade and we review them, and they all come out Monday. It's either Monday morning or at least by Monday afternoon. The grades will be finalized over at PFF.com. It's all part of your PFF Elite package, which is still 30% off using the promo code KICKOFF30. I don't know when they're going to turn it off, but you can get 30% off. So the grades will come out today. You guys will get them, and the Steelers will have the highest pass rushing grade of any team, which, again, I am most impressed by the fact that they didn't do it with extra rushers. It wasn't free rushers. It wasn't designed one-on-ones. It was dominant one-on-ones from Ingram and Highsmith and even TJ Watt, again, who's always great. The one thing I will say, the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen went full Josh Allen experience. Again, the thing that we used to look at in 2019 and say, I see the great, but there's some misses in there too. He had, in the first and second quarter, though, an ugly sequence. He had 2 touchdowns. So as much as I want to rave about the Steelers defense, there were 2 free touchdowns that Josh Allen left on the table. Deep passes. Stephon Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders torched the Steelers secondary, and Allen overthrew them down the field. He had a couple other ugly misses in there as well. Also had some spectacular throws. I thought Josh Allen's touchdown was incredible. Tight window in the red zone. But I would say there was a little give and take here. The Steelers put some pressure, but Allen left some things on the table.
Does that change of what's real and what isn't? Does that change your interpretation or your opinion of how much Josh Allen will regress this year? Because that's one of the open questions going into the season. Josh Allen, like 65 grade, 90 grade, looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Probably not going to bank that up this year just because quarterbacks that can consistently put out 90-plus PFF grades are very few and far between. It's not easy. But the question was always, how far back would he go?
I think there are elements to this. This is where I would say it's not necessarily real because the week 1 narrative stuff is so dependent on matchups. Mm-hmm. He ran into the Steelers defense, which, say what you want about defense being consistent or whatever it is, the Steelers have been one of the better defenses in the league. And they did get after him from a pass rush standpoint, as I said. So I don't think I think Josh Allen will come back down to earth statistically and probably performance-wise, and we saw elements of that, but I'm not worried about Josh Allen after week 1 here.
Okay.
But I thought it was a good, hard-fought, just AFC battle, and the Steelers just,
the good news is
pulled it out.
Because you're going to be signing the Josh Allen apology form wearing the Josh Allen jersey soon.
Yeah, while he's rocking a 60 grade or whatever it is.
But the good news is that somebody sent me a Josh Allen apology form. So if you've signed the apology form already, you can sign the apology for signing the apology form and put it all back together and fix everything.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So you could roll right in to that. You go one and then the other.
The apology form is just an I was right all along form.
It's a mock-up of the apology form, but apologizing for apologizing. What was your reason for?
My reason for apologizing was
charity.
Yeah, which I think is fair.
Sure,
that's the reason why I did it.
I don't know if that's on the apology form as an option, but I'm sure we can modify it. We'll be okay.
I have to touch on the Steelers' offensive line because that was the story of the offseason. Some good, some bad. I mean, the run game that they were going to spend all offseason working on, still not there. Najee Harris, 2.8 yards per carry, 16 rushes.
Najee didn't fix it?
Najee
by
did
himself?
Not fix it. I will say, so the O-line, they had some ugly reps from a pass pro standpoint. It was just a weird game for the Steelers. Like, when we spend time going through these games, we're talking about a few plays here and there. Like Big Ben overall had some ugly plays in there. He also had some beautiful downfield third down conversions and stuff like that. It ended up, he got away with, he had some turnover, 2 turnover-worthy plays that were bad. But even from like an offensive line standpoint, there were a few plays where the O-line held up. Dan Moore at left tackle was fantastic again, but Okorafor got whooped a couple times at right tackle. We saw the interior get beat up. But I don't think we have clean answers that the offensive line is solved in Pittsburgh. The offense still has plenty of issues.
Yeah, Pittsburgh come out of this game, I think, okay, it's impressive you did well and you beat Buffalo, but the big takeaway is the concerns are all real. It's just that the stuff that's good means there should be a limit on how bad you think Pittsburgh will be this year. Like the idea that they were just fade to be nothing and not relevant in the AFC is clearly nuts. But that offensive line is still a concern. Kevin Dotson legitimately looks like a really good guard, which is impressive based off the sort of limited sample size and how little we knew about him for sure heading into this year. But if he's good, I mean, maybe Dan Moore becomes like a massive surprise and a bonus. But you're still like, that's 2 guys on a line. Like Trey Turner is probably going to be an issue over the season. Okorafor is kind of an issue, regardless of whether he's playing on the left or the right side. Kendrick Green, who knows where he'll settle based off one game. But like the chances of you having a decent performing offensive line based off the 5 guys that you have available in any of those spots are limited. Roethlisberger, as lively as he looked in preseason across like 10 snaps.
Didn't look as lively.
Right. Against a legitimate defense. And honestly, that's one of the themes of this week 1 is we said all the way through preseason that, just because you're good in preseason doesn't mean you'll be good in the regular season. It's important because if you don't look good in preseason, it's concerning. But like week 1 is an indication of just how much the step is between preseason and the regular season. Once things start going for real and you're facing the starters every snap and everything is more difficult, like we saw across the board how much harder it is and how much you can look good against the sort of the safe environment of preseason. But as soon as it gets real, dude, it gets a lot tougher.
Big Ben, they ran a bunch of RPOs. Again, run, pass, option. Remember, those are called run plays where the quarterback can just pull it and throw it. He still looks so uncomfortable running RPOs, those things that he has. It's not even play action. I mean, it's just you have to pull it and be quick twitched and all that stuff. It's just not Big Ben's game. So I think the Steelers have some things to work out offensively. I would continue to feed Chase Claypool, who mossed, I believe it was Tre'Davious White, on one play. So credit the Steelers, man. That defense was awesome. Would you panic at all for if you're the Bills?
No, I would not panic. It's definitely a reality check. And, this is the first step in the sort of, hey, will Josh Allen repeat this incredible season thing was a no. So now we need to see some kind of bounce back. Like, there were some concerning things from him in that game. Like there was a Hackenbergian throw into the dirt on a bubble screen. Yeah. All we've been hearing about last year was how he'd reworked his mechanics and he was this fundamentally sound quarterback, and that's why he'd gone from the least accurate quarterback in the NFL to like a top 10 guy in terms of accuracy. It was all footwork. It was all mechanics. And this was like right out of the disastrous quarterback handbook where it was like the feet weren't under him. It was all arm. It was just into the dirt. One of those deep bomb misses was one of those deep throws from like 2019, Allen, where there was no air under the ball. It was all, frozen rope, 45, 50 yards. And when you do that, you just don't have any margin for error. If you're off, the receiver can't run under it. There's no time. It's firing past him. And if you haven't actually hit him on like right in stride, it's done. So like game 1, not great. But we know Allen has better than that in him, so let's see if he bounces back.
We have breaking news here on the PFF NFL podcast. The first 6 games have been graded and reviewed over at PFF.com. So PFF Elite subscribers, you guys can go get your grades for a few of those 1 p.m. games that are already done over at PFF.com. Again, premium stats, PFF Elite. If you don't have it, Kickoff 30 for 30% off. So we can go through some of these other games that are.
By the way, one last thing on the Steelers. Offensive line issues, Roethlisberger issues, they are doing the things that they need to do from a schematic point of view. Matt Canada's offense, they ran play action 34% of the time. This is a team that never runs play action previously, right? They've been not just the lowest in the NFL, but the lowest in the NFL by a mile.
Yeah.
So they are at least doing the things that will steal them a percentage here and there. It's just, it might not be enough if everything else is problematic.
Before we get to the next game, shout out to our friends over at DraftKings. Week 1 may be over, but the season is just getting started at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. To kick off Week 2, DraftKings is giving new customers $200 in free bets instantly. When all you have to do is bet $1 on any football game. Listen up, because you don't want to miss this. You head to DraftKings Sportsbook app now, place a $1 bet on any Week 2 game, and then you receive $200 in free bets. It happens instantly. All new subscribers go and do it. If the sportsbook is not yet available in your state, DraftKings still has huge cash prizes up for grabs all season long with their daily fantasy contests. And DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF to receive $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any football game. That's promo code PFF this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. If you are in one of the states that allows this, this is a no-brainer. Don't forget, you must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
You know that.
Of course.
Where do we want to go next here? Philly?
Sure. Let's talk Philly.
Philadelphia Eagles destroy the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
32-6. This was a thorough beating. Jalen Hurts played just an excellent game. 62 yards on the ground. Only 8 incompletions, 27 for 35 for 264, 3 touchdowns. The young receivers got involved, led the team. It was Devontae Smith with his 6 catches for 71 and a score. Jalen Reagor, second on the team, so the last 2 first-round picks. Eagles look good, man, and they also sacked Matt Ryan. It felt like more than 3 times because they all kind of came in chunks. But man, the Atlanta offense could not get anything going against this Eagles D.
Yeah, and so coming out of this game, what's real and what's fake? The Atlanta Falcons might suck. That's real.
I think what might be real is that Matt Ryan is so dependent on the force multiplier that is Julio Jones. Is that gonna be?
He's missed time and they've been
narrative.
fine before.
His without Julio splits have always been pretty significant as far as offensive production goes.
Even outside of the offense, like the defense is terrible. The Falcons just don't have an awful lot going for them right now. On either side of the ball.
Next week.
Yeah, so it's not going to get better quickly. On the other side, though, like Hurts is interesting because that was a good game from him. Now, it comes with the caveat that it was against the Atlanta Falcons and they probably suck. But that was a big step forward from Jalen Hurts. And look, this was what this season was about for them. We don't really buy in to your prospects as a future starting quarterback here. We don't think that you're going to be the future, which is why we've loaded up on first-round draft picks next year, because we anticipate this season not going tremendously well, and when it doesn't, we want to be in position to grab one of the quarterbacks next year, whoever it is. But if we're wrong, it's a good problem to have, because all of a sudden you prove us wrong, you look great, and now we have a bunch of first-round picks to deploy helping you out, building the offensive line, building the defense, whatever. This was a huge step in that direction from Jalen Hurts. It's still not perfect. He still, I think, has a tendency to run too early in the play. Like, playing quarterback in the NFL is so freaking hard, right? Because you're expected to stand back there in this pocket and just assume that the people around you are going to do their job and pick up and block the people they're supposed to, but also be able to react immediately when they don't. So there's a couple of plays in there where Hurts is standing back and there's a rusher coming and the running back steps up to pick him up, and Hurts just instinctively sort of flinches and bails, right? Knowing that this is probably going to go south. But the running back actually did his job, picked it up, and the space was there for Hurts to hang in the pocket and make the play as a passer, not as a runner. I don't know if, I think that's probably always going to be a tendency of his, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but it's a pretty small flaw. When you consider the other things that he's doing in terms of executing the offense, passing, putting the ball where it's supposed to go, you can live with that as a flaw.
Hurts, whether at Alabama or at Oklahoma, always had elements of that where I think Tyrod has always been a very good comp for him, where the actual throw-for-throw accuracy is pretty much there. He'll hit open throws. He'll kind of make life difficult on himself a little bit as far as inviting pressure and stuff like that, but usually doesn't turn the ball over, usually doesn't put the ball in harm's way. Hurts did have that 4-game stretch where he got away with some stuff at the end of last year, but this was just a fantastic performance all around. And then I think, did we sleep on the Eagles' defensive front a little bit? The thing that's always been good, it was Javon Hargrave who absolutely dominated. He had the 2 sacks, other quick wins, 6 total pressures. He'll have one of the best grades of the entire week from anybody. But again, Hassan Ridgeway got into the mix. Fletcher Cox is there. Brandon Graham is there. Those guys had some pressures. Ryan Kerrigan had some pressures. How much of this is the Eagles' defensive front? How much are we worried about the Falcons and their offensive line? Because that's the other thing we've seen with Matt Ryan. I believe it was 2 years ago that offensive line completely fell apart. And we have Jalen Mayfield. Oh, gosh. Jalen Mayfield's pass blocking great.
Not good, Bob.
8 pressures, other losses in there. It's in the single digits.
Yeah.
It's a single-digit pass blocking grade. Matt Hennessy struggled. Caleb McGarry struggled. The Falcons' offensive line could be a massive issue.
It could. I think the Falcons generally. So of the what do you take away, what is real, what is fake, I think the real takeaway from this game is that Atlanta is just in trouble, top to bottom. Like, things are not good on either side of the ball. I don't know that the Eagles are that great, and they made Atlanta look ridiculous. The Jalen Hurts thing is much more interesting, though, because that did fundamentally change. I've never loved Jalen Hurts, a prospect. Didn't particularly like him in Alabama. Thought it was fairly telling when he left and Tua came in, and it immediately looked better. And then Lincoln Riley's offense is just, it's easy mode for quarterbacks, right?
Right.
We expect quarterbacks to look great coming in or in that offense, and even compared with the other quarterbacks, again, there was a noticeable difference. Like Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, it wasn't the same thing. So I didn't love Hurts as a prospect. Wasn't surprised when the rookie season sort of flamed out after the initial bump from not being Carson Wentz. But that was different. Like, that was a huge step in the right direction. And okay, it helps that that he didn't have like the turnover-worthy plays evaporated. There were none of those yesterday. 0 turnover-worthy plays. The big plays are always going to be there. The rushing threat is always going to be there. And as I say, there's still negatives there, but they're way smaller than, like, if you cut down those turnover mistakes, we can live with not being perfect. Like, you ascend to a different plane of viability when you're not, like, throwing the ball at the opposition on a near constant basis. So I don't know if that's real yet, but it certainly, I think it changes my perception of what Hurts is capable of.
So Hurts is real.
What part of I don't know if that's real yet? Oh, it was the sentence before you started talking. I said that.
He's completely real.
Okay.
One other thing we need to talk about, Jordan Mailata.
Yeah.
Left tackle for the Eagles, former rugby player, signs a massive contract, also produces in this game his second best pass blocking grade of his career.
Did you see the play, was it Rager's touchdown, where he killed a dude?
Yeah, he's awesome.
Murdered him.
Yeah, he's awesome, man. Mailata, one of the just a fantastic story. Again, last year, one of the best run blockers at just adding value, but also had some ugly in there as well. Have to assume he's going to continue to progress, and if there was a weakness to his game, it was more in pass protection. Still learning, only gave up 2 pressures on 41 dropbacks. Impressive outing for Mailata after signing the big contract.
Yeah, tiny aside, by the way, like tackles, guys like Jordan Mailata and Trent Williams and all these dudes that are like 380 pounds and built like a Mack truck. Defensive backs are going to get destroyed. Those dudes have been outlawed now from being the Antoine Winfield technique of being able to just submarine those guys and try and just create a pile in a way that won't get you killed. You're not allowed to do that anymore. It's illegal. So these guys essentially have to just become like stationary tackling dummies for those guys like Mailata out in space. Those poor dudes are getting murdered.
The longest play for the Falcons, by the way, 18 yards. My takeaway from this is it did feel like both of these teams coming into the year, were rebuilding. maybe the Falcons are rebuilding more than the Eagles are, is my takeaway. Because even when you go up and down the roster, the Eagles look better. I thought the Falcons would be better on the offensive line, knowing that Mayfield was a weakness anyway. Right. But the Eagles look good on the lines. We talked about their sneaky additions in the secondary with Anthony Harris and Steven Nelson, but Darius Slay looks pretty good, and they're playing a lot. It's a zone-heavy scheme where they're keeping things in front of them. So far, the Eagles could be the feisty team this year.
I don't think the Eagles were necessarily rebuilding this year. This was a sort of
transition,
almost like a treading water year, just to see. It's like we're not where we need to be, obviously, but neither have we like thrown in the towel and it's a complete rebuild. It's like let's tread water this year, and it's all down to what Jalen Hurts does. If he's terrible, now we're rebuilding next year, and we get to throw all the first-round picks at the new quarterback. And if he's good, we've actually discovered something we didn't necessarily think we had, and we can throw all the first-round picks in building around him. So I think it's this sort of weird, transition works or some kind of treading water thing. By the way, like, I'm now being accused of being a Jalen Hurts homer.
Nice.
It's just this world of,
overreaction. Sam never changing his tune every single day.
I went from being a Jalen Hurts hater to a Jalen Hurts homer in the space of like 4 minutes.
Well, let's hear your Sam Darnold apology. It's the Panthers 19, Jets 14 in the Sam Darnold revenge game.
The Sam Darnold revenge game.
All revenge games.
This is like, when you see somebody make some like absurd, outrageous conspiracy theorist claim, and that it's based off like, if you go and check it out for more than 6 seconds, it's based on some fairly fundamental misunderstanding of what they've discovered. And you're like, okay, Darnold, made some plays. Let's go and like look at his game. Let's see if this actually is some rebirth of Sam Darnold.
Here we go.
The Dan Orlovskis of the world are correct, and he just got Adam Gase for years. And when you dive into it, it's like, as you'd expect, sure, he looked fine. On the other hand, Christian McCaffrey accounted for like most of those yards behind the line of scrimmage and after the catch. And, did Sam Darnold actually play that well?
Yeah,
no.
He played well. He was solid.
Yeah, but how well? How many quarterbacks yesterday would you say were better than him?
I mean, 7 or 8.
Yeah.
So that's a good game. It's a good start for Sam Darnold. Yeah, they scored 19 points. There was a fumble in there that may have hurt that. I mean, they were all right. They were fine.
It was a fine game.
It described a lot of what we said. So passer rating was 102, and it was 8 yards per attempt, and he played all right. Right?
Yes.
He played well.
He played
a
fine.
good football game, and it's what we said. Robbie Anderson only had that one catch, but it was the 57-yard touchdown. It's what we said about Joe Brady, this offense, having DJ Moore when he's healthy now, and having Robbie Anderson, having McCaffrey back there. The passing stats are probably going to look a lot better.
Now, I will say, like, this was
it was a bad Jets defense.
Yeah.
As well.
Yes. I mean, look, at some point, the fact that the Jets have nobody in the secondary is going to be an issue, and it was an issue a few times in this game. Now, to Darnold's credit, when it was an issue, he capitalized. Like, he made the plays. He hit guys like Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore. When the opportunities were there, he connected, and he had a few big-time throws in that game, and he was pretty impressive. But when you sort of watch just the down-to-down of how they're moving the ball, it's more the offense than it was Darnold. Now, I do think that obviously the situation is better. Like, the offensive line wasn't as catastrophic as it could have been. They did a good job of just mitigating it, not making it not the problem, getting the ball out quickly enough, getting the ball out in rhythm, and getting it in the hands of Christian McCaffrey enough. And when that happens, like, it's clearly a better situation. The offense that he's running right now is way better than the offense they were running when he was in New York. But I would like tap the brakes a little bit in terms of like victory laps on Sam Darnold. Like, see, he's a great quarterback. He was just getting wrecked by Adam Gase in New York. I mean, yeah.
So Sam Darnold, unreal, as in not real.
Yeah, as
not
in
real.
Look, I think if you're taking something away from this game, your conclusion from the Panthers' point of view is actually quite terrifying, because the logical conclusion of that game over a 17-game season is Darnold is going to end up grading somewhere in the middle of the pack. He's going to end up producing somewhere in the top 15, and you're going to be very tempted, if you're the Panthers, to extend him to a pretty big deal right as Joe Brady gets a head coaching job somewhere because of the season he's just created out of Sam Darnold. So the reason for Darnold's success is about to walk out of the building right as you commit to him long term. I would be pretty terrified of that if I'm a Panthers fan.
How about Zach Wilson? I mean, he had ends up with 3 turnover-worthy plays. He had a bad fumble on a sack. An outside the pocket, miss, and then the interception to Shaq Thompson. Shaq Thompson had a big game, had the interception and a sack. Moves to number 7 at linebacker, which, it's understandable that Zach Wilson couldn't see him when you have a number 7 in the box.
Sure.
You don't know who the Mike is. You can't have a number 7 Mike. But Zach Wilson was much better in the second half. And I don't, we always like to, he got better. And I do wonder if there were some jitters early on, and it did get better in the second half, and an encouraging sign by Wilson. But you saw some of the good in the back. His first touchdown was outside the pocket. He created it. He also had the turnover-worthy play outside the pocket. The stuff that he was pretty good at BYU kind of went both ways.
Do you think that Tom Brady is ever going to call the Mike being a guy with like a single-digit number?
Tom Brady's gotten to the point in his career where he's like, I'm older, I'm a little funny, even though he's got social media people working for him. He's going to he's mic'd up and say, 7's the mic. I hate this, and then he calls the play or something.
I think the mic is just always going to be the linebacker that has a linebacker number.
Yeah.
Like number 7 is never going to be the mic for Tom Brady. I don't care what it means for the pass protection. I will slide things elsewhere to deal with that fact. But number 7 is not going to be the mic. Zach Wilson is a perfect example of how much harder it is in the regular season. His defining characteristic in preseason was how effortless he was making all of this look. And it just looked different with him at quarterback versus Darnold at quarterback in a way that it had never really looked. And you're like, okay, this is great if you're the Jets. This means we hit on this pick. It's going to go fantastically. And it's a new dawn. He had he didn't have a ton of big-time throws in the preseason, 2 of them, but didn't have any turnover-worthy plays. His adjusted completion rate was 75%. Passer rating through the roof. Time to throw was quick enough.
And it could have been even high. The adjusted completion percentage was still he was on point for the most part.
It just looked great. A couple of games in there, both of them were just good, solid grades. Did everything he was asked to. And then the real bullets start to fly, and we've got turnovers coming. We've got hesitance in the pocket. It looked tougher. And you still saw the arm talent, every now and again, got himself into some space, and his ability to just flick the ball somewhere and get it to fly is fantastic. But you got to see just how difficult playing against real NFL defenses can be.
So first rookie quarterback that we're talking about here, I think similar to the preseason, not the actual performance, but when you talk to the fan base, when we address the Jets fans here, we say, I feel pretty good about him. It was a slow start. Feel pretty good about him. I think when we talk about Trevor Lawrence, but most of the rookie quarterbacks you still feel pretty good about coming out of this week, I think. But Wilson definitely had some jitters. 6 sacks. Again, he had one of them where he just dropped back too far. And just to reiterate here at PFF, we answer a lot of questions on Twitter. On Thursday night, we said Tyron Smith, left tackle for the Dallas Cowboys, didn't give up any pressure. Somebody's like, well, look at this play. His guy hit the quarterback or it was just a hit. And we said, yes, but it's the integrity of the pocket. The quarterback's supposed to drop back and sit or be in a specific spot. The tackle is blocking for a specific spot. There was a play where Zach Wilson dropped back so far it made Mekhi Becton, the left tackle for the Jets before he got hurt, made him look bad because he's blocking for a whole different spot. The defender sees the deeper drop back. So pocket integrity is important. And that's definitely one of those things that rookies sometimes struggle with. Being in the right spot to protect your offensive line, not from our grades, but from you getting hit. So 6 sacks, a little concerning. Probably the most concerning part, I think, of Wilson's day.
Yeah, and he's going to have to work through that thing that every rookie quarterback has to go through, which is adjusting to the freaky athletes that are in the NFL. There were a couple of plays. There was one really nice one where Hassan Reddick had a clean run through to Wilson, and he just sidesteps him, gets out of the pocket. Now he then left the ball way behind his receiver and almost threw a pick. But the first part was great, right? It was just simple sidestep and on we go. Then there was one later on where Reddick again was free and he tried to sort of dance around and beat him, just with some moves. And it's like, no, look, Reddick is too good an athlete for you to get away with that. That might fly at BYU. It's not going to work in the NFL. And all of these guys have to make that adjustment of learning how good the athletes are at this level. The Mekhi Becton thing is a big one to bring up, though. Like, lost to what looked like a pretty serious injury.
Yeah.
That's a big blow to the Jets.
It's a big blow. So the offensive line, rookie Elijah Vera Tucker didn't look great from a pass protection standpoint. Morgan Moses only had the 15 snaps as well. I mean, there were issues up front for the Jets as far as performance and injuries on what looked like this revamped offensive line. And in the story here was, ironically, Sam Darnold is gone, and the Jets have the best situation that they've had since Sam Darnold was drafted. With Becton's injury and other issues up front, might not be the case right away. They do have the great Corey Davis in New York, caught his 2 touchdowns on his way to the Hall of Fame. Yeah. I mean, if Wilson he's got to feed him a little bit more than the 7 targets that he got. But
or just feed him 2 touchdowns every game.
2 touchdowns a game will get you there. Davis could get to the Hall of Fame in a different way than I anticipated, not through 1,000 catches, but maybe through 1,000 touchdowns.
Right, becomes the new Chris Carter.
Or 100 touchdowns.
All Corey Davis does is catch touchdowns. He actually looked good. Like there was a play where he busted loose, broke a few tackles and then kind of stumbled rather than kept his feet and kept going. But when you saw that play, you saw the kind of size and speed and just strength and athleticism that he does have, and you're like, yeah, this guy does have like wide receiver 1 talent. That was impressive. Denzel Mims slowly working his way back in. 3 snaps, one of which was a 40-yard bomb. Maybe use him a bit more than that. Yeah. That's all I would say.
So the Jets have some work to do. Panthers defense, though, year 2 after adding a lot of talent, looked pretty good overall as well.
Yeah. One last one for the Jets. Elijah Vera Tucker, obviously their other first-round pick that they traded up to get. Not a great start. Gave up a bunch of pressure. Didn't grade particularly well as a run blocker either. I mean, now you've got Mekhi Becton down, Elijah Vera Tucker. Like, it's just...
It's early. Some guards take a while.
It's not great for the Jets right now. All the sort of encouraging signs we were talking about, they're going to take some work. But yes, Carolina's defense, it looks for real.
And McCaffrey's back, which is nice. Nice to see Christian McCaffrey back on the field, being a big part of the pass game and the run game for Carolina. Before we get into the next game, got to tell you about our shout out to our friends over at Fantrax. Fantrax's free fantasy football league manager is the most customizable, easy to use, and feature-rich platform in the entire industry. PFF's playing our leagues on Fantrax this season, in part due to the multi-team trades, the bonus points for touchdowns of different yardage. You can create a free account now using promo code PFF at fantrax.com/PFF. I would do it just for this because you get a chance to win a trip to any regular season game this year for you and your entire league, plus $6,000. It's promo code PFF at fantrax.com/PFF. All right, let's go to the Vikings-Bengals, man.
Okay.
Crazy game. Bengals were up 10 in the fourth quarter. Vikings come back to tie it at 24. And then they go to overtime. Vikings are driving, trying to get in position for the game-winning field goal. Dalvin Cook fumble. He's kind of on the ground. I'm going full.
Allegedly
full
fumbled.
Romo here. I don't know, Jim. I think he's down. I don't know if it's a fumble.
Who? Damn it! I forgot who coined the phrase, but I heard the term Romogasm to describe that.
Yeah.
It's great. Like that is a perfect description, isn't it? I
love
know,
Tony.
Jim. The Romogasm.
Coming around on Tony yet?
No.
Appreciating him. Everyone else appreciates Tony except you.
He does kind of, yeah.
The play of the game to me is the Bengals sitting there at midfield, 4th and 1, close to midfield, 4th and 1, and a lot of teams are afraid to lose in overtime. I mean, they're afraid to lose in general, but they're afraid to lose in overtime. And it's like, all right, you got to play for the win here. This is probably your last possession. They go for it on 4th and 1, run that little play action, run the tight end on the deep over route, and Burrow hits it.
Which was especially important because they went for it on 4th down earlier in the game, didn't get it. And it was like, then later, had another 4th down attempt, and they did that thing where you line up and just start barking, and it's like hope to draw them offside. And everybody in the building knows from the second you line that up, you're not going for it. And it was like, all right, Zach Taylor did his one aggressive, proper coaching move, and now he's gone back into a shell and backed off. But then in overtime comes back and does actually go for it on the 4th down again. Yeah, that's key because Zach Taylor is a big part of what they need to get better. That he's in a similar situation to Sean McVay in terms of demonstrating a step on in this offense. Jamar Chase showed that, hey, you know what, 4 drops and five targets, it's probably not a big deal. And, maybe he found the laces. I either found the laces or stopped looking for the laces, which is probably the more important part.
You made me spend 5 minutes on the preview podcast dissecting Jamar Chase's quotes about finding the color white on the football.
Yes.
Whether it be through stripes or through laces.
Yes.
And how concerned you were.
I maintain that.
And how you're out on Jamar Chase.
I never said that now.
Based off of a quote.
Let's not twist this.
Somebody fire up. He said.
I said it was concerning that he was talking about trying to find the laces on a football. I maintain. People kept sending me like the real clip of the interview and stuff, as if it like absolved him of all issues.
Now, a lot of times that happens.
Yes.
You get a misquote and it's out of context.
And it's like, oh, you watch the thing. It's like, yeah, okay, fair enough. That's not that bad. When you watch what he was talking about, it's still concerning. Now, sure, it was brought up to him specifically, like, hey, what is the difference between a college ball and an NFL ball? And that's where he started talking about, hey, it's got stripes, it's bigger, or whatever. But to even be talking about trying to find the laces on a football as a professional receiver is ridiculous. You should never be looking for that. Now, that was my only point, essentially, is when you're talking about that after 4 drops, that's just not a good place to be. That is like overthinking this to a staggering degree. Now, the point we were saying right up until that was that, hey, 4 drops and 5 targets, it happens. It's not great, but it's probably not a terminal thing. And Jamar Chase has way too much evidence of being really good for that to be his death knell. You get into the game, not a single drop.
Looks
on
good.
However many targets. Deep bomb, pass for Rashad Breeland, a couple of other nice plays in there. One play where Burrow tried to lead him into death, which he thought better of.
Yeah, Jamar didn't. Well, at first I thought Jamar was holding up to not get killed, and it turns out I think he was held up a little bit.
He was held by Breeland, but also like, had Breeland not held him, I don't know that he would have thrown himself into that.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't look like he wanted to go over the middle there. But, yeah, so what'd you think of Joe Burrow? Because he goes 20 for 27 for 261. I found it interesting that Joe Mixon had 29 carries.
Yeah.
And part of that was, the Bengals were up in the second half, and they were, running a little bit. It was definitely a run-heavy attack. Samaje Perine had some carries in there. It was a run-first attack for the Bengals. Burrow did get sacked 5 times as well. There was, free rushers, but also just some ugly pass blocking attempts from the interior of the Bengals offensive line at times up front. Burrow took some hits, took a hit on the T. Higgins touchdown, his first touchdown. I thought Burrow had some ups and downs, man. He had the Jamar Chase bomb, 50-yarder, also missed another touchdown. Mike Thomas was running wide open, and he missed it. What did you think of Burrow's his first game back?
I thought he looked good. That would have assuaged all of my concerns about, like, hey, what's he going to look like when he comes back? Is he going to be gun shy? Is he going to be
he took some hits.
Thinking about the knee? Is it going to have affected the way he plays the game? I think you come out of that and you're like, no. Whatever about his overall performance and whether he made mistakes and whether he threw the ball right to a nickel back and all these kinds of things, you at least come out of that game and you're like, all right, Joe Burrow is not broken by the trauma of having his leg collapsed under him from the pressure. Like, he's going to be fine. I thought the Bengals did a reasonable job on the offensive line. By and large, there were some ugly plays in there overall. But I would be encouraged if I'm Joe Burrow. And I think in particular, the fact that he had that connection to Jamar Chase and the deep touchdown, that was the thing that was missing from his game all last year. No kind of deep ball. No kind of connection with anybody deep down the field. That's the play they brought Jamar Chase in to recreate from their LSU days.
Right.
And it was there in game 1. I would be encouraged if I'm the Bengals about how Joe Burrow looked.
Yeah, and I think when you look at how the Bengals potentially – some of the teams that scored a ton of points this weekend have those multiple receivers that are just difficult to cover. We saw it in the Thursday night game, Cowboys and Bucks. By the way, we're not going to review Cowboys-Bucks here. We did it on the PFF Daily on Friday. Because we're going to start doing that, I think.
That's a while ago now.
That was a while ago. So the Thursday review. But those teams flooding the field with receivers. And when you see what Jamar Chase brings to the table, T. Higgins had a touchdown, 58 yards on 4 catches. Big dude, and he's moving well, T. Higgins. It's just he's a tough cover. And then Tyler Boyd, you can see where the Bengals can have an explosive offense if they put the ball in Burrow's hands more, which I think will happen more and more as he as the season goes along.
So the real or not real from this game is Jamar Chase legit?
Yeah, he's good.
Okay.
Yeah, so Jamar Chase is good and real. From the Vikings standpoint, not the game flow that they're looking for when Kirk Cousins drops back over 50 times. 36 for 49, had 350 through the air. Some good, some bad, just across this offense. But
it was fascinating how much 11 personnel they used, though. Like 3 wide receivers.
That was our big – yeah, KJ Osborne's the guy, 7 for 76.
They went from Mike Zimmer essentially sounding pissed off that he had to run with a 3rd wide receiver now that his tight ends are injured, to KJ playing like 10 fewer snaps than the starters who played like 50. Like they literally pivoted from like, oh, fine, I guess I'll have to use a 3rd wide receiver, to basically playing 11 personnel as base the whole game. And it worked. Like, Osborne looked good.
He did. And the other quick story here, BJ Hill. BJ Hill.
Yeah,
the guy that was traded. Uh-huh. We always confuse him with PJ Hall.
Yeah.
It's a little confusing. BJ Hill. They traded Billy Price for BJ Hill. He ends up with 2 sacks.
Including a really impact one late in the game.
And we saw the Vikings offensive line, Garrett Bradbury at center, still having pass protection issues, getting absolutely mauled by power. Some key plays by that Bengals defensive line late in the game. Vikings just didn't play their type of game from a game flow standpoint. They like to run it through Dalvin. They're probably more efficient. I don't want to even say this. They're probably more efficient when they're running when they're more balanced, because the play action game's there and everything, right? I mean, when it's less in Cousins' hands, spreading it out and throwing it around, it does feel like a less efficient Minnesota offense.
Yeah, I mean, the Vikings offense is just frustrating to watch. The offensive line is still bad. They need Christian Darrisaw to get in there and be good very quickly. Otherwise, they're in trouble. The reshuffle that they've done, like, they still have at least 2 massive weak links on that offensive line. They were hiding it a lot. Like, Kirk Cousins was getting the ball out in under 2 seconds for a lot of that game. When he wasn't, he was taking idiot sacks. They're just a frustrating offense. You can, like, Mike Zimmer, the most defensive-minded guy, is the sort of crusty old, cantankerous defensive-minded guy. You can imagine him looking at that offense and just ripping his hair out on a consistent basis, and just nothing you can do about it.
All that said, and it looked like the Vikings were going to be in position. They made a nice little comeback. They looked like they'd be in position for the game-winning field goal. Dalvin's fumble, it was so close.
Yeah, that didn't look like a fumble.
It's a weird one where it almost feels like the ball's moving.
I mean, the ball,
when the guy's down,
the ball
but it wasn't
was
really
moving in that Dalvin,
but he still had possession of it when he was
Dalvin
down.
has hold of it as his ass hits the ground, but so does a linebacker, or whoever it was. And the linebacker is pulling at the ball, which pulls it away from Dalvin's body. The 5 points of contact, chest, arm, whatever. It's here, and then the linebacker pulls it out to here, but it's still in his possession. And then after he hits the ground, he then pulls the ball out of his grip, and it becomes it doesn't become a fumble, but technically was ruled a fumble. That wasn't a fumble for me, and that cost him the game.
I had something else I was going to add to that. No, that's it.
All right, next game.
Bengals 1-0.
What else is for real or fake?
San Francisco 49ers 41.
Okay.
Detroit Lions 33. Here's one of my takeaways. I mean, because the Lions were getting wrecked, and all of a sudden it was like, they're kind of scoring some garbage time touchdowns, and then there's some turnovers, then the Niners fumble, and it's like, wait, the Lions just scored a couple garbage time touchdowns to kind of make it close.
And an onside recovery, and suddenly this is an actual game again.
And then it's, wait, the Lions have an opportunity for a game-tying drive here, down 8, and it didn't happen. But, man, this was it looked like a Niners beatdown, which was kind of in line with your preseason perception, right? The Lions are going to be competing for the number 1 overall pick. The 49ers are back, and they're healthy, and they were a Super Bowl team 2 years ago, and Deebo Samuel had a 79-yarder on a jump ball and the whole thing. But Lions don't give up. Mm-hmm. My takeaway here.
The Lions don't give up is your takeaway. So what is the real or no real question coming out of this game?
The thing that's not real is I don't think the Lions are a team that are going to be scoring 33 points often.
Sure.
I don't think that's real. I think the thing that happens in these games after spending a whole offseason talking at a macro level, this offensive line's good and this team's good and this, what do? Turnovers and bounce of the ball and all that stuff affect single games so much, but they're unpredictable. So that, in this game and in a few other games, it's just the turnovers. It's just the bounce of the ball. And I think that's why Detroit ended up making it close here.
So my things are the 2-quarterback system, Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. I think they're essentially going to throw Trey Lance out there just enough to make teams defend it every week.
Yeah.
Like to make sure that every team has to spend like a day on Trey Lance over the course of prep, but no more than that. So like Trey Lance goes out there, 1 throw, 1 touchdown, 1 pass, the end.
I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is efficient enough when all these guys are healthy, when Deebo Samuel's out there and George Kittle both looked great from a pass game perspective. Raheem Mostert gets hurt after two carries, and then Elijah Mitchell comes in and rushes for 104 on 19 carries and a score. The Niners have the weapons, and Kyle Shanahan has real golf clubs, like you said. We'll just keep the analogy going. Jimmy Garoppolo can run this offense.
Yeah, and he looked fine. Trey Lance got 4 snaps. I don't think that's just
and threw a touchdown on his only pass.
Sure, but he did fine.
Yeah,
I just don't think that. I think this is evidence that the 2-quarterback system that has been talked about or discussed or mooted, it's not going to be a massive part of this offense. They are not going to have, like a red zone quarterback or a drive-to-drive quarterback, or we're not going to see a massive division between these two guys. We're going to see Jimmy Garoppolo starting, Trey Lance getting a couple of snaps here and there just to make sure that a defense has to prepare for it, the end, until, Garoppolo gets injured or plays badly enough that they make some sort of fundamental switch.
So as much as we were on the Lions side panicking on Penei Sewell's rough preseason over at right tackle, this week Taylor Decker gets hurt. Did we even have that information
Yes.
on the podcast?
We may not have talked about it on the podcast, but I
only mentioned him being on my fantasy team.
Of course.
Right.
But it was a known thing, yes.
Decker, finger injury. He's out. He's on injured reserve, so he'll miss at least a few games. Penei Sewell flips back to left tackle, 75.6 grade in his debut. Very good. Much better. I mean, he gave up 6 pressures, but that was on 71 pass blocking attempts because Jared Goff, my other takeaway is this looks like Jared Goff at Cal. He's got the offensive line wasn't great in front of him. He's under heat all the time. We don't really know who he's throwing to. He's not in the trust tree anymore with McVay running play action and the whole thing, and he's dropping back 71 times like it's Pac-12 after dark.
So this becomes really interesting now because I don't think you can put Penei Sewell back to right tackle. He looked like
you can. It's just it's going to be
why
ugly
would
again.
you? He looked lost at right tackle. Looked like he had no idea what he was doing. And at left tackle, he looked good. Now he's going to have. Let's assume Taylor Decker is out 3 weeks, which I think is the minimum, right, for IR now.
Who plays right tackle for the Lions? I mean, Matt Nelson stepped in yesterday.
That's your problem, right?
But Matt Nelson only had 242 career snaps. He had a below average grade.
Equally, I don't think you can put Taylor Decker at right tackle because you're asking like a career-long left tackle to flip to the right side midway through the season. That doesn't feel like a better recipe for success than moving Sewell over there. So I think you have to basically move Decker into left guard.
Stop it.
Seriously, you move Decker into left guard because that's Jonah Jackson's spot, and he's the worst guy.
Decker's already getting paid, man.
Right. So you have to start him, is my point. You can't just bench him. So Taylor Decker comes back. You can't move Sewell from left tackle because he can't play right tackle yet. You keep Sewell where he is. You move Taylor Decker into left guard. Jonah Jackson goes to the bench, and now all you need to do is figure out who's playing right tackle for you.
No, I think the long play is
you want to move Sewell back to right tackle.
Because Sewell struggling in the preseason doesn't mean he can't handle right tackle. It means he's transitioning from left to right tackle, and it might take a little while.
It means he can't handle right tackle now, which is kind of important when you're playing now.
I don't know. I'm forward thinking with a lot of teams that feel like they're rebuilding, like the Lions.
But how far into the future do you need him to play well?
Next year.
Next year?
I think if Penei Sewell played right tackle every week between now and by week 10, he'd be looking much better.
Okay.
That happens a lot.
Not with guys that look as bad as he did.
Take half a season to get better. Anyway, I think a couple of the other stories from the 49ers perspective. Poor Jason Verrett, man.
Ah, God.
He's hurt again. But when you look at the highest graded players on the defensive side for the Niners, this is very 2019. Nick Bosa, DJ Jones, Eric Armstead, D Ford, all guys on the defensive line,
dude,
highest graded players.
Poor Jason.
But poor Jason Verrett hurt
that
again.
Guy, he's like, of all the players in the NFL, that guy has paid his dues in terms of missing time, been injured, having suffered for it, all those things. That guy has the talent to be one of the top 5 cornerbacks in the NFL in any given season. When he's been healthy, he's been a really good player. Last season, finally caught a break, didn't get hurt, made the success, got kind of paid this offseason, got a nice extension, but not obviously the monster deal that he would get if he'd been healthy for any period of time. And then again, just the manner of the injury. It's like, it's nothing. It shouldn't happen to a guy, and he just goes down. And it's like it's done. He's in tears on the way off the field. It just sucks. If there was like an opposite of a voodoo doll, like a voodoo protection suit or something for a guy that you could just wrap in bubble wrap, the little doll that you could wrap in bubble wrap, and that guy would now be invulnerable to injuries. Jason Verrett deserves to be covered in voodoo bubble wrap and no longer injured. And the poor guy is done. And for him, it's horrible. And that probably is a career ender.
I don't love it. Yeah.
And for the 49ers, it's like the one sure thing at cornerback gone.
Depth could be an issue there for the 49ers at cornerback. So definitely something to keep an eye on, but impressive offensive performance for the Niners. The thing that might not be real, the Lions defense has been just so bad last year in the preseason. So how much do you look into that? By the way, appreciate everybody on YouTube here on a Monday morning. We'll be here every Monday morning live. If you're in there, don't be afraid to hit that thumbs up button. It helps us get the word out there. So just hit a quick thumbs up if you're in the YouTube chat right now. Moving on to the Jaguars-Texans.
Last thing, though, concerning part for the Lions is that, I'm not sure they have a starting cornerback on the roster yet.
Yeah.
I mean, Melifonwu had some struggles. Oruwariye got torched. Okudah got wrecked by Debo deep down the field and was getting chewed out by his coach on the sideline. That's a rough spot to be in. I mean, that, in theory, that's one of the positions that the Lions have kind of attacked already, in this rebuild project of get the trenches set first, get cornerback set, and then next season we'll go after quarterback and receiver. If they have to, reset and go, you know what, we actually haven't fixed corner, now that's where all the resources need to go. That's setting the whole project back a year.
I mean, I think the whole thing's a rebuild in Detroit. So.
Yeah, but it's how far down the tracks are they? Potentially, if they come out of this season and are you know what, we don't have a cornerback on the roster, the whole project is now a year in the distance.
All right, Houston 37, Jaguars 21 on the daily. This was one of your big surprises that we discussed a little bit.
Are the Texans for real?
By the way, put some respect on the Texans here. The first place AFC South. Houston Texans.
There's got to be somebody that's sitting there with some Houston for the division tickets and feels great this week. Now, it might only last a week, but for this week, they're going to feel like kings.
Feeling great.
Tennessee sucked. The Colts aren't great. The Jags just got wrecked. I'm sitting here with my Houston tickets for 1,000,000-to-1 odds, laughing all my way to the bank.
So let's start with Tyrod Taylor. Played a really nice game. I mean, we had him evading pressure, making downfield throws. I mean, there was a lot of good stuff in there.
This was vintage Tyrod. Vintage Tyrod Taylor. And I mean that in all the ways. The good and the bad.
The good and the bad, right.
This was the guy from Buffalo who was a consistently good grading starting quarterback, right? He had 3 straight seasons with sort of 75 grades that put him between 12 and 15 in the PFF rankings every year, which is a good place to be. But we've talked before about how teams are looking for better than that, right? It's a nice place to be, but it's below the Matt Ryan inflection point, and we want better. And there
was also an element to it where he just, I don't know, his grade construction was not conducive to efficient offense. There was too much reliance on big time throws, which sounds weird, but there just weren't enough positive plays.
But also remember,
there was too many negative plays with him taking too many sacks.
Remember, he never had the team around him that Josh Allen got, right?
I agree.
Josh Allen came in as the chance to be something better, and it wasn't a great situation. And then Buffalo assembled this team around him, and last year you got to see the fruits of that. The question I would have is, instead of trying to go after the quarterback better than the Matt Ryan inflection point, what would happen if you gave Tyrod Taylor the 2020 Buffalo Bills and said, go play? What does that look like? Now, it doesn't look as good as Josh Allen. It's clearly worse than a quarterback ending up with a 90 grade and taking them to the AFC Championship game. But how much worse? That would be my question. So anyway, ultimately, the Bills, understandably and correctly, as it was proved, went looking for something better, found something better, and all is good in Buffalo. But for Tyrod, it started this spiral of misfortune. Goes to Cleveland when it's still the factory of sadness, gets a concussion, Baker Mayfield takes the job. Goes to Los Angeles, is the starter. They draft Justin Herbert. It's, a holding position anyway, and then a dude punctures his lung before the kickoff, and Justin Herbert comes in, and that's that job gone. So all of a sudden, Tyrod has been booted out of 3 starting jobs in 3 seasons and goes to Houston as the sort of the backup to Deshaun Watson and the dumpster fire that's firing around at that franchise, and then gets to go out there, ball out, look like the old Tyrod, and all's well.
So, man, he played well. He played well. I also think Brandon Cooks is on like his 15th quarterback in the NFL. He's bounced around. He started out his career with Drew Brees and Tom Brady, and it just started to get, Jared Goff for a little bit and the whole deal.
Why do teams not like Brandon Cooks more?
I don't know, man, but he's productive. He had a huge game, high pointing a ball down the field, 2 big plays. Farrell Brown got into the action.
Really nice snag by him.
Yeah, I mean, so this was the Texans getting perhaps the depth that they built is better because it wasn't a whole bunch. Farrell Brown's not this, big name, but all this depth that they built. And look at some of the defensive players that played well. Christian Kirksey, Charles Omenihu, Jordan Jenkins. Vernon Hargreaves had 2 picks, and he still ended up with just a 66 grade, which might be a career high. My boy Vernon Hargreaves having a breakout season here because Trevor Lawrence hit him.
He'll break out if quarterbacks keep throwing the ball to him.
He's got another game against the Jags, so Trevor Lawrence could help him out once again.
3 big-time throws from Tyrod. So, look, real or not real, are the Houston Texans real?
They might be in the feisty category.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair.
They might be in the feisty category.
Look, the guy is sitting there. Oh, I guess my question is, the guy sitting there with his Houston for division ticket, is he happy in 17 weeks' time?
No.
Okay.
No, the Texans will not win the AFC South, is my prediction.
Jacksonville, are they in trouble?
I think so. This did not look great. Start with quarterback Trevor Lawrence, of course. Mm-hmm. Man, I mean, so Trevor Lawrence has played in, I think, 3 football games, right? 2 preseason games and then this one. Maybe there's a 3rd preseason game, but in every game I've seen him make a throw that is just, wow, incredible. His second touchdown, wheeling it up the sideline. He is doing wow stuff.
Yeah.
All the stuff in between is not all wow stuff. 3 turnover-worthy plays, 3 interceptions, and a lot of them are just misreading corners, overthrow, sprint into his left, which he makes a lot of.
That was bad.
He makes a lot of plays run into his left.
Well, I mean, the problem with this game is that there was wow, good and bad. Good wow and bad wow.
Which still keeps me in that Andrew Luckian territory because Luck had something like 40 turnover-worthy plays his rookie season. It was like 50 big-time throws and 40 turnover-worthy plays. He was playing with Bruce Arians, which it's kind of the standard. But I think Lawrence has that. I was expecting him to almost make a comeback just because he's got that ability to get the ball down the field. So I think it might be a bit of a roller coaster ride here for Lawrence. He's got to get good at all the stuff in the middle, though.
Yeah, and he's dealing with some of the same Zach Wilson stuff in terms of you got to understand what you can't do at this level. Like, honestly, that maybe is one of the first things that a young rookie quarterback needs to understand is forget what you can do, learn very quickly what you can't do. Yeah. Like, that's the difference between the NFL and college. It's not the throws or the plays you can make. It's figuring out what you just can't get away with anymore. And that is one of the biggest failings of some of the quarterbacks that flame out is they never make that adjustment. They never work out what you can no longer get away with. They're too ingrained in being the best player, athlete, quarterback on the field in any given game, and they never figure out that at this level, you're just not that good. You are not Patrick Mahomes. Now, and for Lawrence, it might be even tougher. Yesterday was his first regular season defeat in his football life. Never lost in the regular season, like dating back to whatever ridiculous low level of, high school they've crawled back into to find this stat. The guy has never lost. Can you imagine the adjustment that guy has to make to figure out that, now I just can't run around to my left, evade a pass rusher and flick the ball straight to a receiver with no consequences?
Let's say, so we have a lot of content we'll be producing here because we have a midweek podcast on a Wednesday. We want to keep the Monday podcast to a review. I think that might be worth this a daily or a Wednesday reminder here. it might be worth a discussion. Trevor Lawrence, as a guy that hasn't faced a ton of adversity. Urban Meyer hasn't faced, well, he's faced adversity, but hasn't lost a lot of games. The greatest quarterbacks in the NFL, even Peyton Manning in college was awesome, couldn't beat Florida. Like every year, just couldn't beat Florida. Like he actually ran into teams. He didn't win a national title. Peyton Manning left Tennessee, and then they won the national title with T. Martin, right? So even Peyton, who was awesome, faced adversity. Do you need that to be a great one? I feel like we could discuss this in more detail, not today.
Just quick, was it Emmanuel Acho that said, like, with an interview with the team when he was being drafted, they'd been like, you know, did you have a happy childhood? Did you have both parents? You know, what could you afford whatever? And he was like, no, I mean, all of his was, you know, normal, middle class upbringing, whatever, both parents, everything's fine. And they're like, oh, then, you know, you're not for us. Sorry. Like, see ya.
Didn't want him for that?
Didn't want him. Like, what adversity have you been through? Essentially was the point. Like both your parents, like clean, middle class, normal family, we're out.
It honestly depends on the team, because I always joke about there's one team who's like Derek Carr coming out. He's like, ooh, he's married. Ooh, I don't really like that. He's kind of young and married. And another team's like, oh, I love that he's married. Very mature.
Positive.
Yeah, really good stuff. Anyway, that might be worth a further discussion if Lawrence can handle adversity. That we don't know his life from a football standpoint, though. It seems like he hasn't faced a ton of.
He's got a way to go. The offense looks like it. I mean, all that talk of the creativity, it's not there yet. I mean, Laviska Shenault is running end arounds, which is about as creative as that offense is getting right now.
I really would love to see the Jaguars get a tight end here. James O'Shaughnessy had 6 catches for 48 yards. Chris Manhertz did have a 22-yard, pretty nice touchdown up the seam and all that stuff. But
look at you over there, Mr. Skip Bayless.
What?
Did you see Skip?
What did he say?
Jags could have used Tim Tebow out there.
He said that?
Yeah. I had to check that it wasn't like a 10-year-old tweet, but it was, like 29 minutes ago.
Don't even. Just stop. All right. They could use a legitimate tight end, not the dude who got cut who can't do anything well at tight end. All right. Seahawks and Colts. Seahawks 28-16. This was, I mean, oh, man. Russ only dropped back 26 times.
It's like
18 of 23.
The ideal Seahawks game.
Yeah, they loved it. They loved it. But it was because they were creating big plays. I mean, it wasn't because they were grinding it out like crazy. It was just Russ was creating big plays. He had one of those classic, that touchdown that he threw. He had a couple bombs, but the one that he threw to Lockett against the blitz, it is just and Kyler Murray had one of these, and I remember I wrote the note, Russ-like, when you face pressure and you just create room and just loft it up there, and Lockett goes and Willie Mays catches it, and that was awesome. The Seattle offense looked crisp. I mean, it was new offense, same old Russ creating big plays down the field.
Same old Russ and kind of same old offense. Like, it didn't look dramatically different. Now, maybe it didn't have to in this game because of the way the Colts were playing and surrendering those big plays. But, you know, takeaway from this game from Seattle's point of view is, okay, this was good. This was how it normally looks. But is there really much evidence from this game that we're going to see something genuinely different from this offense, which is probably what needs to happen for them to take a step forward as opposed to just tread water? Now, they're in a position where treading water for them is a good place to be because they're traditionally a playoff team and successful, but they're not a team that's beating, Tampa Bay and getting to a Super Bowl and beating the Chiefs the way they currently are. So they need something different. And coming out of this game, I would question if we saw that. From the Colts' point of view, I thought Wentz looked pretty good.
Yeah, average depth of target of 6 for Carson Wentz. So I thought pretty good. He has 66.8 passing grade, unless we make a couple changes here. Solid passing grade. It's okay. I think to maximize the Carson Wentz experience, though, you have to be aggressive. And I think even when Wentz was early in his career, he kind of played like Andy Dalton. Like when he first got into the league, he kind of played like Andy Dalton to me, which was like, spread the ball around. But he could always make the deep out and create chunk plays up the seam and all that stuff. The thing I've said about Stafford for years, where it's like, I need you to tap into the arm talent and the ability to get the ball down the field. That's what I want out of play callers for Carson Wentz, because turning Carson Wentz into just a 6, a dot of 6 in a game where they were trailing, I just think the Colts have to be more aggressive with him. And maybe it's the playmaker situation there. I don't know, but I want to see more aggressiveness out of the Colts there. But you're right. I mean, he wasn't the disaster that he was last year. That's a good sign.
Yeah, to me, though, this felt like, I mean, Carson Wentz is a reclamation project at this point. The problem is he's an expensive reclamation project.
Sure.
So this is not like finding some, scrap car in a yard and like putting it together and now you've got a nice little runaround, right? This is like finding some classic that's worth, 6 figures, and you can fix it. When you fix it up, it's going to be worth, $1 million. It's going to be worth 7 figures, but it's going to cost a lot to get that up and running. And like, that's not a trivial enterprise. You can't screw around and just go, well, you know what, we could bodge this together with a few pieces in the back, but to do it properly, which is what you need for this to be worth the money it's supposed to be, it takes investment. So my point is, if you're Frank Reich and you're bringing over Carson Wentz and it's costing you a first-round pick plus all the money attached to his contract, you probably can't just go out there week one and be like, let rip, Carson, let's see how this works. This felt like an offense that was protecting its quarterback quite a lot, but then every now and again you're facing 3rd and 12 and you're going to need Carson Wentz to drop back and fire one, and he did. So if I'm coming out of this game, I am quite encouraged by how that whole process has been stitched together. It looks like Carson Wentz is, quote unquote, fixed. He's clearly not, the player from last year. The offense is doing its job in terms of protecting him. Wentz is showing that every now and again, when you need a big play, he's capable of doing that. The question that you would have is there another step? Like, is this it? Because this is good, but it's, it wasn't good enough to beat Seattle. Or is there 2.0? Is there like another version, by week 12, are we going to see more on Carson Wentz's plate and him capable of elevating things that he wasn't, in this game?
Good analogy, as always.
Thank you.
My question is, when you get your classic on the road, I know you're not driving 55 on the highway, right?
It depends on the speed limit, Stephen.
Can you get a ticket just from saying I drive fast? And
I think if you said yes, I drove X amount over the speed limit.
Can we have somebody like throw a ticket at you in our mentions here? Someone with the power. I'm just saying, hypothetically, in a 55, you might have a really nice car that you want to drive 90. And I want to see Carson Wentz driving 90 recklessly on the highway is what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's not me. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying from a football standpoint, damn, you stick with the analogies. I want to see Carson Wentz be more aggressive. I get your point. You're slow playing it and you're easing him in. I said on the preview show, I will overreact to this game. I will react to Carson Wentz.
So your overreaction is the Carson Wentz experiment is just never
No. What I wanted to react about is, what does Carson Wentz look like? And I will agree with you that he looks fine. Like, he looks good enough. So it's not 2000. My reaction is, it's not 2017 Wentz that was like hopeful.
Yeah.
It's not 2020 Wentz, which was a train wreck, or second half of 2019, which was horrible. It is mid-tier Carson Wentz.
Early 2019, which is what
early 2019,
which is what Reich was aiming at.
Well, he got it.
Yeah.
So it is mid-tier Carson Wentz, but I will defer back to the same thing I say about every mid-tier Stafford and Carr guy that has a pretty good arm and all that stuff. To maximize the mid-tier Wentz experience, you got to throw the ball down the field.
Well, going back to it's all about the Matt Ryan inflection point. Right now, this is not train wreck Wentz, but it's below Matt Ryan inflection point. The question ultimately is, does it ever have a ceiling to be higher than
That's
that?
Pre-2021 Matt Ryan inflection point.
Yeah, the Matt Ryan inflection point right now is pretty low. But the general Matt Ryan inflection point, the question is, does this have the capacity to be better than that? And I think that's still an open question.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
So
next
game. All right. Arizona Cardinals 38, Tennessee Titans 13.
Oh, boy. Now, this is one. This is like a real or not real. Remember last year, the Cardinals came in facing the defeated Super Bowl San Francisco 49ers and beat them week 1, and it completely changed everybody's expectations for Arizona.
And they're doing it again.
It was like all of a sudden, oh, is Arizona actually for real? Is this team here? Have they arrived?
Yes.
And then just as soon as everybody thought that, they kind of collapsed, and everybody's like, oh, well, the Cliff experiment is done. So then they come in again. They've done exactly the same thing. They stomp Tennessee, who was supposed to be, the division favorites, and wreck them. Is that for real?
I think the NFC West is for real, is the bottom line here. The NFC West they've got some really good football happening there. Tennessee was completely out of sync offensively. The A.J. Brown, Julio Jones experience was a couple plays. And so they were just off. And, announcers were talking about Tannehill and Julio getting on the same page. Chandler Jones had, 5 sacks?
Yeah.
He was very good. He was awesome. I'm not going to take anything away from him. But there were stunts in there. There was an unblocked sack where he just didn't bite on the play action. The Cardinals' defense is my big takeaway. This is what's weird about this week. The Cardinals and the Saints are the teams I think we've talked the most about, cornerback situation. Watch out. Something bad's happening here in your secondary. You just don't have corners in Arizona or in New Orleans opposite Marshawn Lattimore. And both of those teams probably made the life most difficult on opposing quarterbacks this week. Arizona's defense played fantastic. Isaiah Simmons flying around the middle of the field. Budda Baker flying around. My big takeaway is that Arizona's versatile defense that they have created is legit. Legit in the sense of what an NFL defense is that in a given week, they can make life difficult for opposing offenses. And I know they scored 38 points. We should talk about Kyler and his big-time throws. He had 6 of them. But Arizona's defense was really impressive to me.
Byron Murphy almost completely locked down Julio Jones, which is not a sentence I thought I would be saying ever.
Murphy had one bad play. He got duped on a flea flicker. Other than that, he was flying around the field, making plays. He looked awesome.
Broke up a touchdown pass to Julio Jones in the end zone. Now, okay, he kind of had a hold of him. And one of those plays where it's like
subtle.
If they call it, you can't complain. But if they don't call it, it's a great play. You know what I mean?
Just assume you
right
know
on that line
what you can get away with.
It's right on that Revis line, right? Where if you can do that every single play, you're the best cornerback in the NFL. But most people can't. So it's really, really impressive how good he was.
EPA per play allowed, by the way. Cardinals #1 defense.
And then you got Arizona's offense that was dominant. That Kyler Murray touchdown to Christian Kirk, being able to throw that distance and that accurately off.
He had 2, right? There was they had a back shoulder and the.
Yeah, but there was one where he was it wasn't even off his back foot. He was throwing himself backwards at the time and just dropped it into a bucket deep down the field. That's insane.
That was the one I was saying was Russ-like. Murray had one bad decision. He tried to throw the ball. He threw the ball to Kevin Byard. It was in a time when Tennessee was down by a lot. Arizona needed to take care of the ball. So one turnover-worthy play that did lead to an interception there for Kyler. But touch throws, back shoulder throws. He tried to hit Rondale up the seam, which wasn't the best decision. But they got the ball into Rondale's hands in the screen game, 4 catches for 68. As expected, I think A.J. Green didn't do a whole lot, but it didn't matter because DeAndre Hopkins looked great. Mm-hmm. Christian Kirk looked fantastic. Rondale looked fantastic. They're spreading the field with all these various playmakers, and Kyler Murray's getting it to them.
Yeah, Murray showed everything in this game, the full spectrum of what you need from an elite quarterback, cover 2 hole shots down the sideline,
beautiful,
running out of the pocket. His grade last season outside of the pocket wasn't actually that good, particularly not when he's throwing the ball.
Right.
Made a couple of ridiculous plays in this one. One for the Hopkins touchdown where he gets out, finds him in the end zone. Another one where he's just running around playing complete sort of backyard football, firing the ball to an open guy eventually. He made the full spectrum of impressive plays in this game. And as much as the offense doesn't look like it's ever prepared to do that moving receivers around thing. It didn't matter in this game, but at some point I think that does. I think that's a net loss. I get why they're doing it so that nobody has to think about anything. They can react quickly and they can just line up and go. But I think at the NFL level, that is a net loser for you.
Can I just have you not talk about it anymore now?
No. Well,
if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. And if you mention it for 16 more weeks. Come on, man.
I might not mention it for 16 straight weeks.
The Cardinals don't move receivers.
But in this game,
if the receivers can cover well, it'll be all right.
I think just in week 1, it was disappointing not to see them do that.
Sorry, I didn't mean that was mean of me.
It's all right. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Again, Byron Murphy was fantastic. Budda Baker, and they were doing some unique stuff like Budda Baker playing, the middle linebacker in cover 2. They run the seam, and Budda Baker's doing that. Broke up a play as well. He was flying around the field wearing number 3. Robert Alford came back, played some good football. Isaiah Simmons had a pick on a tip.
This defense is creative. Like they have
very creative.
They have a lot of unique players, unique style players. You know, Budda Baker, Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins, J.J. Watt. They have a lot of freaks, essentially, that don't fit into a conventional mold of what a defense is supposed to be. They're not prototypical players at any given spot, but somehow we've been saying this in the offseason. How does this group get crafted together, and what does it look like? It looks pretty fun.
The one other, from a Titans standpoint, their pass rush is not fixed at all. So they spent a lot of money on Bud Dupree, and bring him in.
How did Bud do?
He did not do well. The entire pass rush, third worst grade in the NFL this week. So that's my concern from a Titan standpoint, because I thought, look, the secondary gave up a lot, but Christian Fulton made some plays here and there. They fought tough. Poor Kevin Byard. He is one of the best pure free safeties. Single high free safeties in the league. And he was playing man coverage in the slot a ton. I think it was the first DeAndre Hopkins touchdown. Quick pass on a blitz. It was a great read by Murray, by the way. Quick pass on a blitz. DeAndre Hopkins on an island, whoops Kevin Byard. He's put into some tough spots. I think the Titans have pieces in the secondary, but they have to figure out, are they going to blitz more? How are they going to get some pressure to protect the back seven?
Fun stat from this game, not if you're a Titans fan. Harold Landry led the team. Grades are still pending review, so this might change. But Harold Landry led the team with 4 total pressures, but has a PFF pass rushing grade of 49. Why is that? Well, because of those 4 pressures, 3 of them were cleanup and 1 of them was unblocked.
So he didn't actually
beat anybody for any of those plays. Yeah.
Win anywhere.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a concern.
It's not great. Bud had 2 pressures from 28 pass rushes. Each of them were unblocked.
Look,
so
I'm not going to sit here and pick on Bud, but the Steelers looked great without him from a pass rush standpoint, and the Titans still have a lot of work to do.
I think it's fair. I mean, not fair. I think it's okay to pick on certain players if they're rich. You know what I mean? If they've already been paid, if they've already got the monster contract, and you're like, you know what? Even though we
warned teams not to give him that contract.
Even if by some weird confluence of events, my meanness on this podcast causes this man to eventually lose his job and be booted out of the league, he's a millionaire. Who cares?
True. He's got a lot of money.
It would be different if you're like, a 7th round draft pick and like dumping on that guy, because that guy doesn't have the millions already.
Yeah.
But Bud's laughing.
Derrick Henry seems to start slow every single year. Is this the year it's going to catch up? I'm not concerned about the Titans. Tannehill, I don't think, played as poorly as the stats would have showed. He had his actual touchdown to A.J. Brown was beautiful. He had another one that snuck through there to Julio. Something is off with the connection to Julio, though. And I don't know if that's just age catching up to Julio, if it's timing or what.
They just haven't really played together yet.
Yeah, no, they haven't. I know, but it's early. So I'm not giving up on the Titans, but I'm impressed by the Cardinals. Chargers 20, football team 16. This impressive game by the Chargers. They had a long drive in the 4th quarter to shut this thing down, and it was Justin Herbert converting 3rd down after 3rd down. Just a clean overall game for Herbert. Had one errant pass that got picked, which was maybe just more of a great play by William Jackson in the secondary, but it was a very, very impressive game by Justin Herbert. You called a 2 QB system in Washington this year. It just didn't go exactly
you predicted.
The
full Foles is going to have to last a long time potentially if Ryan Fitzpatrick is out and Taylor Heineke has to take it from here on in.
Well, maybe Heineke could be Flacco and Foles all in one.
That would be interesting. I think Heineke ultimately is just Ryan Fitzpatrick but younger and without a beard. Like, it's weird. They play the same. He's very similar as a quarterback. And, I mean, they were kind of interesting. Like, Fitzpatrick, I think, looks kind of as advertised in terms of, he's making some plays. Now, he was under pressure a lot and there was problems. Like, Heineke had similar style. It didn't go great against the Chargers, which is obviously why they weren't able. But he made some plays in there. I think regardless of which one they have over the course of the season, the quarterback position will be where it's supposed to be, which is somewhere in the middle of the pack and not the reason they're winning or losing games. The question is everything else. And, Eric Eager from the PFF Forecast was making the point on the preview show that the thing going against Washington this year is that they are facing like a murderer's row of opposing quarterbacks. And
Yep.
it started week 1 with Justin Herbert, and it went, that was the difference, right? Generally speaking, the better quarterback wins in just a one-on-one matchup every week. And most of the time this season, Washington is not going to have the best quarterback. So even though they have had this massive upgrade getting to just average at the quarterback position, they're going to be underdogs every week because they're facing a better one. And I mean, I came out of this game extremely impressed by Justin Herbert.
Yeah, he looked really good, and I would say, credit the Chargers defense as well. Derwin's back. He had a 90+ coverage grade, making some plays. Offensive line held up all right against the Washington defensive front. I mean, that was the big matchup to watch as well.
Particularly Slater. I mean,
yeah. Chase Young had some stuff, made some plays, but and it did. Washington. Look, it was a back and forth battle between the O-line and Rashawn Slater. Like you said, did look really good.
The thing that I was really impressed with Herbert, obviously, like last year, it was all about the spectacular stuff. It was what he's doing when he's everything else, like the efficiency on the in rhythm, in the clean pocket, the stuff that's supposed to be easier. And more to the point, the stuff that's predictable, like he just looks so good. And obviously his arm is insane and the ball just flies out of his hand. But the way he played from like a clean pocket, I thought was really impressive.
I really love the way his arm strength. He had a cover 2 shot, deep outs. They just look different coming out of Herbert's hand. And it does matter. And I think that's why he had the touchdown to Mike Williams, back shoulder fade, back shoulder in the end zone. He just gets the ball. The velocity plays. I keep saying this. It just plays. It is a part of his game that makes him difficult to defend. So Herbert throwing to Keenan Allen, who's converting first downs like crazy. Mike Williams, they combined for 17 catches. Jared Cook ended up being a pretty nice addition to the offense. Liking where the Chargers are, man.
And he had 5 drops by his receivers. That game was better than it looks on the stat sheet.
It was a high volume game too. Dropped back about 50 times.
Yeah. I came out of that game extremely impressed by Herbert. This was more impressive to me than just the high variance, crazy stuff that he was doing as a rookie. The fact that he showed that sort of improvement at the more stable, basic, easier, conventional things is, I think, huge.
Chargers pass blocking grade was exactly in the middle of the pack.
Perfect.
It was exactly in the middle.
Crept
right, again,
back
but
toward
against
average.
But against a very good defensive front. I mean, that's the encouraging part. Whereas previously, this would have been one of the worst grades that they would have been bad. Sam.
Yeah. The fact that they've overhauled that offensive line was A, smart, and B, huge for their prospects.
All right, we got 5 more games. Moving to the 4 o'clocks here. We went from the 1 o'clocks to the 4 o'clocks. Chiefs 33, Browns 29. What a game.
Yeah.
This was. What a crazy game. And this is what I'm saying about the turnover stuff and everything. So from a Browns perspective, they did a lot of good stuff, man. They were going for it. They were aggressive. Their first drive, they went for it on 4th and 3 and converted. They were going for it on 4th down. They had they were about to line up and kick the extra point, and there's a penalty, which puts the ball at the 1, so they decided to go for 2 to get up 8-0. The Browns are making all the right moves from a decision-making standpoint. Still wasn't enough against the Chiefs, though.
Yeah, they should have won this game and didn't because they shot themselves in the foot. The problem is that turnovers are just so freaking important in the NFL that they will undo like 20 smart decisions in the course of a game. Like all those tiny little edges.
Ridiculous ones.
Right. And all those tiny little edges that you're stealing in terms of 4th down decisions, go for 2, all those kinds of things. You're stealing like a small edge in win probability here and here and here and here. And over the course of the game, it adds up to the difference between winning and losing. The problem is you undo all of that with one ridiculous turnover. All of it. Like immediately. And the Browns did that a couple of times to the Chiefs, and you just can't do that to Kansas City. They are too good for you to give them that volume of opportunities. And, I tweeted yesterday that, like, the margin for error for beating the Chiefs is just so freaking small. And there were a couple of people like, do you not remember the Super Bowl? Like, yes, with the caveat of, like, when they have an offensive line. Like, when they have 5 backups playing, sure, it's easier. You have a bigger margin for error then. When they don't, the margin for error is so ridiculously small. And Cleveland they gave them too many opportunities.
Nick Chubb fumble, punter fumble, Those are the things that happen in the second half. Bad.
Yeah.
What I was so impressed about with the Chiefs offense, the Browns offense first, all their various playmakers. So they had no OBJ.
No Odell, yeah.
And they had Anthony Schwartz, their third-round pick, who we thought had, what's he going to do? Everybody's just trying to get these speed guys. Is it one of my eternal questions is why are 4-3 receivers not always successful? How does that not always just work? And I think I just came to the realization yesterday that you just have to use a role where 4-3 speed makes sense, right? So when they have Anthony Schwartz, they had a plan for a guy who runs in the 4-2s, really. Run those deep over routes. Run in Kansas City's the template for this with Tyreek Hill. Right. He's a great all-around receiver. But the Browns clearly have a plan for Anthony Schwartz and his speed because he is just fast. He was wide open on a deep ball and still tried to drop it. He's just not a good receiver. But they had a plan for him, end around, deep passes for him. They used David Njoku down the field. He's their second or third tight end, depending on how you look at it. They used Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the running game. They have playmakers, and they have a plan for using them, which is great. And I thought it was impressive that they had a plan for Schwartz, a third-round pick who's just fast and doesn't have receiver skills, and he's going to be a weapon. So I like a lot of what the Browns have done. I think they did lose a little bit of that first half aggressiveness in the second half, though. While came out of the half up 12, right, 22-10. You got to keep trying to score against this Chiefs team, and I know they were trying. They just turnovers.
So real or not real from this game, is Kansas City's offensive line actually going to be a problem? Have they somehow spent the entire offseason investing massively in this unit, and it's still not great?
No, I think Myles Garrett against Orlando Brown, they played a lot against each other, Browns, Ravens. I think Myles Garrett's just tough.
Sure.
He's just tough, man.
On the other hand, you're going to have to deal with quite a lot of those players, in the course of an NFL season.
Not a lot of Myles Garrett.
Not a lot of Myles Garrett, but a lot of good pass rushers at left tackle.
I think the Browns with Malik Jackson, they just did a really nice job revamping that defensive line. I would be encouraged by the Browns defense. I mean, what the Browns defense did, they tried to keep everything in front of them, and they did for the most part. Mahomes, I don't even know how it happened, roll into his right and throws it back across his body to Tyreek Hill. That is where they're special. It's just he saw one-on-one between Tyreek Hill and John Johnson on a pass that probably shouldn't even have gotten through. I don't think it should have gotten through. It probably should have been tipped if John Johnson looks up, but it gets through and it's a 75-yarder. I mean, there's your margin of error. It's small because at any point they're just going to create a 75-yard touchdown.
That's why you can't give them extra possessions, because plays like that are probably going to happen every now and again, and you just can't give them opportunities to do that.
Mahomes really didn't miss many throws at all, I don't think. He had one early where John Johnson broke it up in the end zone where maybe he actually had time to get it up and pick it off in the end zone. I mean, those are the plays that you have to continue to take advantage of. And then I thought on the other side, Baker played a good, efficient game. I think that's real. The Browns offense is going to move the ball, and they're going to be real. Baker's interception at the end, though, was bad because he said he was trying to throw it away. It's just so late in the down. You have to anticipate you're going to get hit. You have to feel the pressure.
Yeah,
it looked ugly. I understand what he was trying to do.
He's trying to throw the ball away, and right as he's doing that, somebody grabs his right leg, which is the one, coming through to generate power, to get the arm moving, to get the ball out of the off the field. And as soon as that gets taken away in the course of throwing, your arm just can't compensate for that. So it ends up wildly underthrown, thrown right to a Chief, and that's all she wrote. For a period, it looked like Baker Mayfield was coming out of this, making that kind of statement. That guy was like the second-ranked quarterback in the NFL from week 7 onwards or something last year. And for a lot of this game, it looked like he was going to keep that momentum rolling and look like, hey, not only am I going to have a career year this year, but I'm going to propel myself into the top 5 conversation, and we're going to be cooking. You still have to be quite encouraged, but that was a really disappointing way for it to end if you're a Browns fan.
Browns offensively are what we thought they were, in that overall offense grade is going to be number 2 behind the Rams here. And that's because receivers played well, running backs played well, offensive line pass blocked, blocked really well. So that was it. Chiefs are tough to beat, man. Tyreek Hill, 11 for 197, including that 75-yarder. Travis Kelce had 6 for 76. The underneath stuff, short and intermediate game for Kansas City. Very good and efficient. Again, Mahomes, just a really good job. I use the word patience for him a ton because we only seem to focus on the highlights with him. But what makes him special is not missing a lot of the short stuff, and I thought he was great in that area.
Chris Jones, almost everything, true outside edge alignment. This thing is for real. It's like moving a 310-pound dude to the edge and just saying, hey, let's see how this works. They're doing it. I mean, almost all of his snaps were legitimately pure edge rushing or pure edge alignment. Had a few pressures in there, had a couple of sacks. Like, it's crazy, but it might work.
All right, let's go to New England. We've got Miami 17, New England 16. Kind of a weird game, man, because Dolphins are up. Tua throws a horrendous pick. Again, all you have to do is take care of the ball, and he tries to make something happen that's not there. Throws a horrendous pick. New England has all the momentum, Sam. Got the momentum. Man. New England is driving. It looks like Mac Jones is about to become a New England legend. Lead in the fourth quarter comeback. Damian Harris fumble, though. Thwarts it. What a fantastic play. It was Xavier Howard. Forced the fumble and recovered it. What an incredible game-changing play. And this is another funny one, right? 2 fumbles by the young running backs in New England. Ramondre Stevenson had 1 carry for 2 yards, fumble. Damian Harris has the fumble. And the turnovers were the story here. And that was the story of the Dolphins last year, right? Creating a ton of turnovers. It didn't seem like – it's still early. It doesn't seem like that's the type of thing that can continue from year to year. But 17-16, hard-fought battle for the Dolphins here.
Yeah, another example of how, all the things you do right are just out the window if you turn the ball over. Can't do it. That's why Bill Belichick typically sits guys down if they ever put the ball on the floor. He's going to have a tricky decision now, given that his top 2 running backs put the ball on the floor.
Harris was pretty good. Other than that,
I mean, Harris is a really good running back.
He's a good runner. He's a very good runner.
And behind that offensive line, which is going to just bulldoze people out of the way, he's going to have a ton of success if he doesn't put the ball on the ground, on a regular basis, which will put him in the doghouse. What is your Mac Jones takeaway coming out of this?
His first play was horrendous. It was Cousins-esque. You talk about like the panic play. Mm-hmm. It's as bad as it gets, to be honest. He was under pressure, panicking, and he throws it backwards. When you throw things backwards in the NFL, that's called a fumble. It's a live ball. He spiked it backwards in a panic. Yeah. His next play also looked a little hesitant, right? Honestly, after that, he was spectacular. He was – it wasn't even – it's not even – spectacular is the wrong word, because when you hear spectacular, you think Mahomes and Rodgers and special plays. It is just play after play of Mac Jones is getting hit. Doesn't matter. Ball's coming out, and it's getting there accurately. I'm so impressed by the toughness and his accuracy.
I was trying to find a way of phrasing this in the game yesterday, because you're right. Like, the first play – was ridiculous. It's
like an easy narrative, though, right? Like, rookie, first real action. Like, he settled down after that.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
So I was trying to sort of make the point that one of the things that's been most impressive about Mac Jones from like day one, as soon as he's come into the NFL, has been just his poise and how calm and collected and not fazed by anything he is. And I was sort of trying to make the point that, that's the thing you come away from yesterday impressed by. But that came after that first play, which was like, it was almost the equivalent of everything you do gets invalidated by the one turnover. Almost every amount of poise you had gets invalidated by that one play where you look like Aaron Brooks. Like, it's ridiculous. Play, yes. But it's true. Like, after that one play, right at the start, where he just looked, panicked is the right word, where he looked completely panicked and did something absurd. He did settle down. And again, like the point about Mac Jones is every time he's given some kind of hurdle or obstacle or setback, it's immediately right back on the horse and looks better for it. Like, improves, learns from the mistake, doesn't make the same screw up twice, and keeps going. And even after like his press conference, he was talking about how he'd sort of let himself slide on mistakes during practice and things, and how that wasn't like, that's not good enough. I need to clamp down on my own mistakes in practice, and I won't be making like all those kinds of things. There is this,
he says all the right things, right?
Yeah, there is this freaky sort of aura about him of just doing the right things. And sure, he might not have the strongest arm in the class, and he might not be the best athlete, and he might be rocking the dad bod and all these things that make you a little bit leery about buying into him. But the important things appear to be exactly where they need to be. Like
he was the most impressive rookie quarterback, and I
Yeah.
know the Patriots scored 16 points. They only scored 16, and I do believe in, ultimately the quarterback's job is put points on the board, but again, in a one-game sample.
But again, 3 big-time throws.
Very good.
An adjusted completion rate of 83%. I mean, even his just basic passer rating was 103 yesterday. Like, he looked good.
Yeah.
And certainly the comparison of the two quarterbacks, both from the same college, one of whom has had a year more than the other one, I mean, he looked a much better player than Tua.
Tua looked I thought he looked okay early on, but the Dolphins offense goes through these spurts where like a 3-yard gain feels difficult. Just a 3-yard completion. So Tua's there's still something missing there. I like Devontae Parker looked good. I like the way they've got Jalen Waddle free with using motion and his speed.
He was used outside as well, which I think is an important thing. If you're going to spend the number 6 overall pick on a receiver, he better not just be a slot guy only.
No, he had a nice pass on the slot fade. So the weapons are there. Liam Eichenberg played left tackle there. He got absolutely wrecked by Josh Uche on one rush.
Yeah. That was the one where his feet, he did get tangled with the left guard.
He did get tangled with the left guard.
But
right?
yeah, I mean, Uche just ran him over.
Tripped guy. But Uche is good. So it was a good hard-fought back and forth battle. But, man, good resiliency from the Dolphins there. And Xavier Howard, who's coming off a 10-interception season, to be the guy to force that fumble and recover it and save the game for the Dolphins. The Patriots had a similar game last year where Cam Newton was leading a comeback. He fumbled against the Bills. That's one of my takeaways here, right? The games where the Patriots always seem to win with Brady, for whatever it's worth. Can Brady stop Damian Harris from fumbling? No. But all the games that they were always in close games. They were in a lot of close games, and Brady always seemed to lead the victory. The Patriots just seem to be just missing those over the last couple of years. I think Mac has it, though, man. I think he's all right. And the Patriots offense, their weapons are better this year. They're not scary, but there's a lot of them who are solid. And you can see the tight ends getting involved more. Number
15 made a couple of plays yesterday. I'm like, oh, is N'Keal Harry showing? No, it's Nelson Aguilar wearing number 15.
How can you just take somebody's number when they because was Harry using 15 in the preseason?
I think so, right?
I think so, too. It's very confusing.
It was. I was like, maybe Harry's actually going to break out this year. It's like, no, it's just Nelson Aguilar making some plays. Mac Jones made one deep pass to Nelson Aguilar down the sideline in the face of a dude about to take his head off, like free rusher on that side.
The seam?
The side? No, down the sideline, just into a gap. But it was one of those throws where not only is the guy coming at you, but he's coming where you're looking, right? You're sort of throwing the ball over the dude's head, knowing that he's hitting you, and his ability to make that shot, knowing he's going to take a big hit. I mean, dude, you've got to be impressed by Mac Jones. If you're one of these people that, keeps receipts on Twitter and goes back like a couple of years later and, starts old takes exposing everybody, you are going to have a treasure trove of tweets from Mac Jones.
Absolutely, man. I mean, the accuracy percentage is on our throw for throw accuracy breakdown, one of the highest of in the league. And it was a lot of short stuff. It was a lot of underneath stuff with the Patriots, but the throw you made had the wheel route to James White when he has to throw the ball down the field.
And that was always good. I mean, certainly for a long time, that was the story of Tom Brady as well. It's like, it's all dink and dunk. But like when he has to make a throw, he's making a throw.
Quarterbacking is spreading the ball around and doing that. So for a team that scored 16 points, I think Patriots fans should be really excited about Mac Jones.
Agreed.
Here. And then at some point they'll figure out how to.
And look, Miami is a good team.
Games.
Like
Miami is a good team.
You lost to a good team and you gave them the win, like with the fumbles. So
Tua. Let me just finish this with Tua here. My initial Jimmy Garoppolo comp when he was coming out was based off of distributing and quick release, and most of the time it looks pretty good. But Garoppolo always has these 2 or 3 plays per game, sack that he shouldn't be taking. You always talked about his blind spot for linebackers. Tua needs to cut back on those.
Yeah, it's a little bit Jimmy Garoppolo like as well in terms of like. Yeah, most of this is pretty good, but the stuff that isn't is why in the earth are you doing that? Like in Jimmy's case, it was like, why are you throwing the ball straight to the middle linebacker? In Tua's case, it was like, why are you spinning around like a top and then just heaving the ball up skywards, hoping that that'll work out? Either way, it's not great.
All right, we got 3 more games, Sam. We got this.
Let's go.
Packers Saints.
Oh, boy.
All right, we discussed this a lot on the daily because
Real or for real, LASIK has fixed Jameis Winston.
Well, he didn't even need it. He didn't throw the ball down the field except not one time. Jameis looked good.
Read just his stat line, by the way, is stupid.
It's an NFL record, actually. Fewest passing yards
to hit 5 touchdowns?
With 5 touchdowns. Yeah. Jameis was 14 for 20 for 148, 5 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
The yardage stuff, it's just how deceptive it is sometimes because Jameis, it was 3rd and short, one of his touchdowns to Juwan Johnson, bought a little time in the pocket. You know, the drift, you've got the bad drift as a quarterback and you have the good drift. He had a little bit of that good drift to create room and get the ball to Juwan Johnson. Pocket movement was really good with Jameis. Decision-making was good. They didn't ask him to do a whole lot, but he did make those tight red zone throws when they needed to. And then he actually capped it with the bomb to Deontay Harris for the 55-yarder.
And it's another perfect example of, like, you know, just be careful with box score stats. Like, it's one of those touchdowns, passing touchdowns, quote unquote. It's, you know, the tap pass to
he did have
Alvin
the tap
Kamara.
pass too.
It's like, you know, technically it's a pass, but it's a run play.
I posted the video because I did the bad thing, screenshot. It was Kamara. I was like, hey, Kamara turned this into a touchdown. And some people are like, oh, look, he's got 3 blockers in front. It's like, okay, well, if you see the actual video, he ran through like 2 or 3 Packers to get in there. But a tap pass where he got in for 2 yards, yes. But Jameis was efficient.
Yeah.
Kamara ran the ball pretty well. Tony Jones ran the ball pretty well. I was just so impressed by the Saints defense. The Saints and the Cardinals, the teams that we were questioning, we also questioned the Packers' number 2 cornerback spot, and Kevin King, you know, got attacked as well.
Still a problem.
But we talked about the Saints' number 2 cornerback spot. All of the Cardinals, they have the top 2 coverage grades this week, the Saints and the Cardinals, or the top 2 EPA per play defenses. The Saints dominated defensively. Rodgers made one ridiculous throw where he put it right on Davante Adams' hands in between 2 defenders. But I think that sums up the day. That's what he was looking at this entire game, was the Saints playing a ton of really good man coverage with the safeties in the right spot, taking away everything the Packers wanted to do.
What is wrong with Aaron Rodgers? So, okay, real or for real, as LASIK fixed Jameis, we're on the fence. Has
Jeopardy ruined Aaron Rodgers?
Has Jeopardy / Hawaii vacations / what drama, like high school teen drama within the building, ruined Aaron Rodgers? Did the revenge tour only last, despite only power a man, for 12 months? After that 12 months, you need to find a new way of generating hate for people.
You know what's a weird one, man? The Packers I think they have the best pass blocking grade of the week. It didn't feel like it when I was watching. We'll see what happens upon review. They actually pass blocked well, but this is what stuck in my head. The first interception Rodgers throws in the red zone, O-line gets whooped. He's under pressure. He forces it. Uncharacteristic Rodgers mistake. But you made the point on the daily. What does Rodgers just have these games? Like, he gets crushed.
Yeah.
As an elite quarterback, he has these games where he just gets crushed. This happened in the Bucs game last year. They were cruising. They're cruising. He throws a pick 6. And then it just all fell apart for the Packers.
Yeah.
Is Rodgers too much of a front runner? He likes to pass the ball when they're up a couple touchdowns and feeling good? Is he too much of a front runner? And once they get down, once he threw that first pick, the second pick is something I've literally never seen Rodgers do. He's in his own end zone, arm punts it up to Marcus Williams, who just tracks it down. Rodgers is so careful with the ball at all times, and he just threw it up. Wasn't even close to his receiver. I don't know what's happening there.
That was a weird one because, as you say, Rodgers is one of the most risk-averse quarterbacks in NFL history in terms of putting the ball in jeopardy, and that was the play of a guy who's just like, this game's done. Like, what the hell? That was a YOLO Fitzpatrick, right? That was like the only way out of this is to just start putting the ball in the air and seeing what happens. And sure, it might be bad and we might end up down 50, but you live and learn. Like, let's just roll the dice and see what comes. But like, you expect that from Fitzpatrick. You don't expect it from Rodgers. He doesn't do that, and yet he did.
I think part of the frustration, though, just after the two-minute warning, the Packers had 12 offensive plays. The Saints got the ball, and they kept it, and it wasn't a time of possession thing. It was just they just were moving the ball. They weren't just holding it. They were moving the ball and scoring. It was pure domination on both sides of the ball by the Saints, and I think that frustration added up for Rodgers as well.
So the The Jameis thing I think is interesting. We know we know how variance works with Jameis, right? So we need to see more. This was encouraging. It was good that he can be that efficient within a Sean Payton offense. I think it probably shows that the idea that the Saints were done in a post Drew Brees landscape was wrong. Now let's see how long he can continue that, or whether we see the bottom end of the Jameis coaster come back. For Rodgers and the Packers, how much trouble are they in?
I don't think a lot. Rodgers is not going to play that poorly. Him and Devontae Adams will get theirs. I think they'll be okay. I think the Packers will be okay. They need to be better defensively, though. That was the thing. I think the fact that they tried to kind of address the Kevin King thing with Eric Stokes, but it's not fixed at corner.
Did you see the play?
Run defense wasn't great. Nothing was good defensively.
Did you see the play where Kevin King essentially took out the entire side of the coverage for a touchdown? It was kind of like a pick play, and his receiver managed to not only take out Kevin King, but like skittle Kevin King into the safety and took them both out.
Here's the thing here's where I don't want to overreact. Last year, the Saints did this to the Bucs in the middle of the season in week 9, right? Last year, the Packers did this against the Bucs.
Yeah.
Early in like week 6, right? They laid an egg, got whooped by the Bucs. It didn't matter in the grand scheme of like, oh, the Packers are like a 500 team. No, it didn't matter. The Packers went to the NFC Championship, and Rodgers still had a great season, and they were fantastic.
And that was Rodgers' point yesterday after the game. He's like,
it just happened to happen in week 1.
It's one game.
Yes. So I'm certainly not ready to write off the Packers. I'm more ready to say the Saints defense have the pieces. Paulson Adebo, a guy that I said 3rd round pick, played great. I said, he could be the most important draft pick just because the Saints had such a hole at corner. Yes, they just traded for Bradley Roby, but I just think we should put more faith in the Saints defense. The Saints defense has the ability to play games like this.
And they have a lot of players
where they shut things down.
Yeah, they still have a lot of players to come back or to come in, like Bradley Roby, as you said. They also have Onyemata suspended. Is going to come back at some point and bolster that defense. Like he was their best defensive lineman last year. Like if Onyemata comes back as the cavalry from at like week, halfway through the season, that's a huge addition. That's like a free signing. It's like a transfer season midway through the year.
Yeah, Eric Stokes only got out there for 8 plays. I mean, I just wonder, Kevin King is 40 coverage grade. At some point, it's just still a huge hole for the Packers.
Yeah, at some point you would think that Kevin King's play is going to force that decision. Like there's going to be a degree of how bad can Eric Stokes be?
Yeah, look, as much they should have addressed it. The Packers should have addressed it.
They just Eric Stokes is addressing
They should have addressed it more. I guess they put a first-round pick toward it, but if the first-round pick's not even starting, you didn't address it enough. They didn't address it in free. Before they knew they were getting Eric Stokes, they purposely re-signed Kevin King.
Yeah. I mean, that's also addressing it in a bad way. I just think at some point Kevin King's play is going to force you to play Eric Stokes with the idea of, how much worse can this get? And if Eric Stokes doesn't play well, then that you didn't help yet.
Rodgers has a history of bouncing back. I think I pulled out the stat last year. He throws for 4 touchdowns. They're playing the Lions next week on Monday Night Football. He's going to throw 4 touchdowns next week against the Lions. We're all going to forget about this, and they're going to be 1-1, and we're going to move on. That's the Packers. Credit the Saints, though.
Yeah.
Domination, 38-3.
Yep.
All right, Denver 27, Giants 13. Teddy Bridgewater spreading it around, 28 for 36 for 264, couple scores. Jerry Jeudy got hurt, man.
Yeah.
But this was the offense we were talking about, even without Courtland Sutton doing a ton. Jeudy and Fant and Hamler and Tim Patrick and all your weapons and playmakers.
Thankfully, it was quote-unquote only a high ankle sprain. At the time when he did it, Jerry Jeudy, it looked like that was a bad injury, and it ended up not being quite so bad. X-rays negative. High ankle sprain is still like a significant enough injury, but could have been a lot worse. Teddy looked pretty good. Yeah, this is the high end, I think, of what Teddy's capable of. Like this was the player that we thought he could be in Minnesota, that we probably expected him to be last year in Carolina, given the Joe Brady offense and all that kind of thing. And Denver need him to be if they're going to win games. On the other hand, it was also, hey, this is the Giants. You're expected to win this game. So, I mean, this is it's one of those sort of no-win situations for Denver. Like, all you can do is come out of this with an as expected. Yes, you beat the Giants. You were expected to beat the Giants. Well done. Now what happens when you play good teams? But at the same time, you did check all those boxes, which is what you needed to.
I was impressed. I mean, I thought the Giants defense would put up a better fight, I guess. Broncos, I mean, Melvin Gordon reels off a
but so much of that is
70-yard touchdown.
Yeah, so much of that is because of all those offensive playmakers that Denver has. Like,
sure.
At some point, you just come up against this bevy of weapons, and you're like, I mean, they're better than we are.
I'd be excited because of the way Teddy Bridgewater played, man. This is the distributor label. I mean, if we're going to sit here and, rave about how Mac Jones played, it was Mac Jones' rookie year. By the way, the first impression I got when watching Mac Jones was Teddy Bridgewater. Both of them played very similar this week as far as, take what's there. Bridgewater's going to look a little bit better because he does have the better playmakers and going up against a little bit worse defense, Giants versus the Dolphins. But there are some vibes there, I think, between Bridgewater and Mac Jones. And Teddy played the game that we kept saying, oh, man, it wasn't what it was supposed to be last year with the Panthers. This was closer to what Teddy should be playing like. The Giants didn't really, on paper, they were supposed to have these playmakers too. And I thought they just showed flashes of it. Sterling Shepard with some nice plays in this, 37-yard touchdown. Darius Slayton, couple, downfield play, big downfield play, but Kenny Galladay, couple nice plays in there. But the offensive line is still just, I think, too much to overcome.
Yeah.
The Giants.
Now, again, to be fair, they're going up against Denver, who have like legit pass rushers and are going to make it look ridiculous. I know there are other teams out there with good pass rushes as well, so it's going to be a problem. But this is like as bad as it's likely to look. But yeah, that was our big concern with the Giants generally going into the season. Maybe the most encouraging thing on the Teddy Bridgewater side of things in this game, he went deep like a few times.
Yeah.
He had 6 dropbacks, 6 pass attempts that were 20 or more yards down the field, essentially deep shots. Got screwed out of one of them by KJ Hamler going full Troy Williamson on a pass that would have been a touchdown, I think. It was right on the goal line when it arrived. If Teddy Bridgewater is going to be that aggressive in terms of those deep targets, that's a huge thing, because that has always been one of the biggest things that limits how good Bridgewater can be, is how aggressive he's willing to be pushing the ball deep down the field. If he's prepared to do that every week, that I think is a massive thing for them. The Giants, I mean, that offensive line I just don't think is good enough. Saquon Barkley didn't get anything going because of it. Daniel Jones is going to be up against it all year because of it. It's a problem.
Yeah, Von Miller had some nice rushes against Nate Solder. Solder's another guy moving to right tackle. He wasn't a complete disaster, but it's just risky, man. And Billy Price not playing for the Giants after the trade.
Also, can you imagine like a worse matchup for Nate Solder than Von Miller? Just generally, like stylistically, size-wise, it's just like it's kryptonite. Even if he was at his best, if this was peak Nate Solder, Von Miller would be one of the worst players I could think of to go up against.
As someone tweeted me, the Nick Foles, Daniel Jones comp remains. It remains. Can we tell people to stop biting on the ridiculous Joe Judge fake news stuff that goes around?
It's too funny to ignore, though. Like, what was the tweet that Joe Judge was making everyone do laps after the game?
Yes. Did somebody actually come out and say, of course, this is fake? Like,
I don't know.
Because my entire timeline, because everybody that I follow is very funny. You understand, Sam? Everybody in football Twitter is very funny.
Okay.
So when you see a tweet like Joe Judge is making the team run sprints, you don't rush to confirm it or double check. You have to go quote tweet it with something snarky. It is very important that you get get that adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
The testosterone boost from making a funny on the Twitter machine when it was just completely fake.
It was, but it was too funny. I wanted it to be true.
I understand.
I wanted it to be real. That mad after a defeat, Joe Judge said everybody out to run laps.
You know what's real coming out of this? AFC West, baby. Chiefs, Broncos, and Chargers.
Don't say baby. You're not a baby kind of person. I don't think.
Oh, you know what happened?
What?
I was watching the Al Davis 30 for 30 the other night.
Yeah.
With Al Davis versus the NFL.
Is that the one with the?
Is that
the one with the fake CGI? Al
yeah,
Davis?
I didn't know what was happening.
What is with
that? Was
that?
from 2011 too. I don't think I'd ever seen it.
I mean, it shows. That's some of the most awkward CGI I've ever seen for no purpose.
Yeah, it was him and
Pete Rozelle.
Pete Rozelle.
It's fake Al Davis and fake Pete Rozelle.
Rozelle sounded so fake, though. Al was kind of half decent.
And it's not even like deep fake. It's just like some dude on his computer knocked up like a cartoon version of each of them.
I take back the baby. It's because I watched the Al Davis thing the other night. Broncos are for real.
Broncos are for real.
Just win, baby. Sunday Night Football. Rams 34, Bears 14. Get Justin Fields in there. We demand Justin Fields. The Andy Dalton experience was short passing.
Oh, okay.
Not in length.
Yeah.
Just in pass length. He's got his revenge game against the Bengals, though.
Well,
He's got to at
short.
least play the Bengals game next week and then probably Fields time.
That's when you think it's going to happen?
It's probably going to break right after this podcast.
So
they're putting Fields in. I guarantee it.
So going into this game, the discussion was, look, everybody's railing against your decision to start Andy Dalton. They want to see Justin Fields out there. And then there's a group of people saying, look, the way that offensive line is, you can kind of see why they're not doing this. And how long Fields is holding the ball, the fact that you're playing Aaron Donald, all these things. Is Fields actually capable of protecting himself against this kind of defense? That was the point a lot of people were making. After seeing that for a game, where do you stand?
I don't.
What should they have done and what should they do?
I'm still going to do what's best for Justin Fields.
So what is that?
Probably. I don't know. I'm not there at practice, man. It's a tough one.
The most ridiculous cop out in the world.
No, you don't really know. I mean, look, I don't care if I'm trying to maximize the Justin Fields experience. I don't care about the first half of the 2021 NFL season. Is my point.
Okay.
So, whatever you think is best for Justin Fields. Now, there's a chance that having him as just a change of pace player, which I was asking you the other day, that did actually happen.
They did do that.
Having him as a change of pace player, right? This feels like the way you described the Vikings. 1 foot in the rebuild, 1 foot in the win now, right? It's like the Bears are saying, we got to do well by Justin. We got to do what's best for his development. But we're going to go win football games right now. We're going to have him, the Justin Fields package, which might be, just kind of get him in there, get the jitters out and all that stuff. I think in a few weeks of seeing NFL game planning and the whole thing, week 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, they go with Fields. I got a feeling they might just do it right now, though. I honestly think we're gonna finish this show.
Remember a few weeks ago,
they might announce.
I said the times that he's going to get on the field, it's either week 2 where they get to face really soft opposition, or the next time that happens again is week 4 where they get another cupcake. And then if it's not that, you got to wait a while. There were people that came out of this game not understanding that the offensive line was a problem, because Andy Dalton was only sacked 3 times, and David Montgomery had 100 yards on the ground, and therefore the idea that the offensive line is not bad enough to prevent Justin Fields being on the field, damn it, is crazy.
Cam Jones, Andy Fields.
Look, Andy Dalton got rid of the ball on average in 2 seconds over the course of this game.
Fields was closer to 4 in the preseason.
That is the fastest you are ever going to find a quarterback getting rid of the ball, right? And he still got sacked 3 times.
Yeah.
David Montgomery had 108 yards rushing, 81 of which came after contact, and most of his runs were punctuated by breaking tackles. If you came out of this game with the conclusion that the offensive line is not a big problem, so Fields should be out there, you have not really paid attention to what was happening in that game. Even Fields, when he was out there, right? 1, fire it out quickly, and 2, it was, option stuff and misdirection, which is fine. But if you're can you do that for the entire offense? Can that become your offense if Justin Fields is out there? Because it probably needs to. I don't think yesterday did anything to make you say, if the reason you're keeping him on the sideline is because you're concerned about your offensive line, yesterday did nothing to change your mind, is my point.
And the offense is going to look completely different with Fields. So it's a bad offensive line, like you said. Andy Dalton has the quick time to throw, the second lowest average depth of target. It was just all underneath stuff left and right. You've got Allen Robinson, one of the better downfield threats. I saw Josh Norris post the little passing chart where everything is short and underneath. Yeah. I mean, they spent all this offseason adding speed to go with Allen Robinson. The Fields experience would have looked like this last night. He would have gotten sacked about 6 times. and
would have made a bunch more big plays.
Would have made a bunch more big plays. It would be more, he'd throw the ball 10 yards, down the field, and they'd have more big plays. They'd run the tight end yoink play that they love for him that was open in the preseason.
There is definitely the conversation to be had of like, look, it's going to look different with Fields, and it's going to be more problematic, but does it matter? Like, Fields will make more plays. He is capable of offsetting a lot of that pressure. Does it actually the only question for them is, does it harm him by putting him out there and exposing him to this?
And
it might not.
Care.
I don't know.
I think the 2021 Bears here in week 2 are better with Justin Fields at quarterback. I don't care, though.
Probably.
I don't care.
I don't think that, though, is as certain a thing as people are making.
I'm not saying it's certain. I think that's the case.
I
don't think it's astronomical.
Yes, I agree.
Think they're better.
It probably is, but you have to factor in those extra sacks and those extra negative plays that are going to be there by him holding onto the ball like twice as long as Andy Dalton.
I think you care about Justin Fields in 2022 and 23.
But
and I honestly don't know what the right answer is, because some quarterbacks sit and some quarterbacks play and take their lumps or whatever.
It is, like Sunday Night Football pulled out the graphic of 29 quarterbacks or whatever that have been taken in the first round, of which only 3 have basically sat their entire rookie season.
Those are just active guys, I think.
Whatever
they had, right?
And the 3 were Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and Jordan Love.
Yeah.
And it's like, even just those 3, you can't take anything from that, right? You've got the 2 of the greatest quarterbacks ever and a dude who didn't play and doesn't look good anymore.
But did they become the greatest quarterbacks because they sat, or you just happened to sit the greatest quarterbacks?
Even if you're trying to draw a conclusion from just that 3, it doesn't make any sense. Even if sample size wasn't an issue.
Sat a whole season, and he ended up, before some of the injuries, he was a very good quarterback overall.
Yeah.
There is evidence of some guys sitting and being good. Tom Brady sat, not because he was a first-round pick and needed time, but he sat. I mean, look, there were guys who sat and learned how to play football first and then became very good quarterbacks.
So ultimately, we've come out of this with no further indication of what
how good are the
Bears
Rams is
do.
the better question.
Yeah.
Couple things here. Stafford, 20 for 26 for 321. So he averaged 12 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, near perfect passer rating. Did it even without a run game. All these big plays were coming without a run game until they actually picked up some yards late. But Stafford looked good and crisp. The offense looked good. My big takeaway here is the Rams have another one of those teams that is difficult to cover. One of those touchdowns, though, my goodness, the 56-yarder to Cooper Kupp. Bears had nobody within 20 yards of him down the field. That was just a coverage bust and terrible.
Did you see Dan Orlovsky say it wasn't a coverage bust? He moved the safety with his eyes, so it's not a bust.
Oh, stop it, Dan. Dan.
I would contend that that's
high school safeties will not move that far.
Well, even if I would contend that that's how it's a bust. Like, it's not
right.
It's not a bust because the guy moved for a reason. It's like that is why it's a coverage bust.
Quarterback gets all the credit for that. It's a tough offense to cover, man. This Rams team.
It is, but this is you have to factor in that Bears defense didn't look good. Like, the secondary is a problem as much as the offensive line is a problem. This roster has eroded a lot in the last couple of years. They've done, again, a similar thing to the Vikings, which is they had a championship caliber roster and didn't have the quarterback to make it happen. They spun their wheels in the muck with Mitchell Trubisky for a couple of years, and now they don't have that roster anymore. So you might have the upgrade at quarterback, whether it's Andy Dalton or Justin Fields, but you don't have the team anymore around him. So the Rams were able to just drop back and drop these bombs on that secondary that's not capable of covering it anymore. Like the play where the guy caught the ball, fell over, still able to get up and run. Nobody touched him.
The first bomb to Van Jefferson, yeah.
That's
67-yarder.
That's just bad.
They had a 67-yarder to Van. That was good. I mean, so that was – McVay had a quote after which was like, you can do anything you want with Stafford. And, of course, people saw the little quote and like, oh, he hates Jared Goff. Like, he was literally just complimenting Stafford because they asked him, what can you do with him? And what can they do with him? They rolled him out left and then threw the post back to the right. So there are little wrinkles in this offense that the Rams will be able to add. And the other phrase that I love is make you defend every inch of the field. With Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Robert Woods, Deshaun Jackson, Tyler Higbee, and Stafford distributing, you got to cover every inch of the field against this Rams team.
You do. This is a great game for, like, confirming your priors. If you were on the bandwagon of Matthew Stafford plus the Rams equals Super Bowl, you are loving life.
Feeling good.
Right.
Feeling good about
you're
it.
like, this backs up everything I've been saying. in the entire offseason. This is what McVay was excited about. You know, that when you hear Chris and Al talk on the broadcast about how everyone's walking around the building with this smile on their face, they think something special is brewing. This is evidence of it. You're like, nailed it, right? On the other hand, you have to factor in that the Bears basically just gave them a couple of deep bomb touchdowns, which changes that game. And for that was a long period in that game where the Bears were actually still hanging around in this, right?
They really were.
For a team that was able to manufacture a couple of just easy bomb touchdowns, like the Rams didn't keep pouring it on in the way that you might have expected until pretty late, you know? So I think, yes, this looked great. This was encouraging. Matthew Stafford is clearly an upgrade over Jared Goff, but let's wait and see for another couple of weeks. Like, can they keep this going? Is this how it's going to look every week, or is this just how it looks against a team without a secondary?
The one other thing I did want to mention is Jalen Ramsey. We talked about his role and everything.
Yeah.
He was playing in the slot a ton, and I made the half joke or whatever. I mean, Charles Woodson, late in his career, went from elite lockdown outside corner to this linebacker. I mean, it's really a slot player. But the Antoine Winfield role, essentially, where you're a corner, but you're up in there and like run fits as like almost like a linebacker at this hybrid everything, which Jalen Ramsey is capable of doing. And man, it looked fun, blowing up screens, getting his nose dirty in the run game. He can really do it all, and they're just trying to tap into that skill set. His
play against the run and on those kind of short things has always been, I think, a little bit undersold.
Oh yeah,
like he's really good at that kind of stuff.
That's what he did. At Florida State. He played free safety, and then he played their star position, which is essentially, the slot. It's that position that we're talking about right now. It's just fascinating that you have a guy that is so good on the outside. Last night he played 36 snaps in the slot, 27 out wide. They're moving him around. I mean, when they play the Bucs in a couple weeks, what are they going to do when you face a team like the Bucs that has all these weapons to cover? How do you deploy Ramsey? I just love this from a storyline perspective.
It is, yeah. It's interesting as well because they have like the replacement for Troy Hill within this. It's interesting the way they shuffled the defenders, the cornerbacks in particular.
Yeah.
You get essentially you lose your slot corner in Troy Hill, and instead of sort of finding another slot or patching it up that way, you move Ramsey into this, like, again, Charles Woodson type role, and you just find the guy that can play the outside snaps for a third of the game.
So that's it, man. All the games.
Nice.
The grades are coming in all day. Go check them out. Kickoff 30, kickoff 30. If you're in the YouTube chat, appreciate if you guys throw that thumbs up. Just click that little thumbs up. Get everybody buzzing about the PFF NFL podcast, because we'll be here every Monday morning recapping every single game. We appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Don't forget, rest of the week we'll have a Wednesday afternoon show, and then we'll be back on Thursday previewing all of the Week 2 action. PFF NFL Daily is still live. I promise I will give out Edge subscriptions this week if you send those screenshots daily. I need a few more of them. I said I need at least 25 or 30, right? Daily plus NFL podcast. Send a screenshot. NFL podcast at pff.com. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Happy week 1. See you guys on Wednesday.